Let's take a look. Pro Quitters versus Meow Police. Meow Micah, Kaio, and Opa versus Xlav, Blade, and Raito. Seed number 9 versus seed number 16. And I'm not going to lie, I think that's probably the biggest surprise to me so far, although we're like 5 minutes into the broadcast, so I guess you should take that with a grain of salt. But Meow Police, you know, you look at these guys, you don't really associate them with a lot of competitive play. They really haven't been playing these 1v1 events. I don't really recall them playing a lot of team events in the past either. But they are seed number 9, and I think that tells you a lot.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I want to say they might have joined teams by the Looking for Teams channel. So it's not like they've like been a team that's played together for a while. They both are, you know, Conk 3 players. I've known both, you know, from the ladder here and there. But I want to say that, you know, they weren't like I said, weren't teamers for a while. Whereas on the other side, Keo and Meow Micah, I know have you know, played some team games together for here a bit in previous tournaments.
That's so cool, though. Like, imagine if they, you know, win this set. They'll be playing a decider game within their group with a chance to potentially get into the top 8. That's so cool for a team that really, like, kind of just assembled themselves through that Find a Team channel, just saying, well, listen, I want to play this event. I don't know who I want to team up with. I don't necessarily have the connections or the people that I usually play competitively with. So, yeah, let's just see who else is out there. And sometimes it just clicks.
Yeah, and I mean, they already took down a couple of big names. I want to say they were the ones deciding sending Avely and Lash on home. So, you know, already have kind of been able to make some money for themselves, and you can't complain about that when you're pairing up with a random.
Well, we do have the best of 5 draft over here. We're kicking this off with a brand new map for the event, Kurlogar. We have a chance for Scandinavia sighting today, which I'm extremely excited about. Gorge, Cliffside, Dry Arabia, some classics as well in the map pool. And it looks like we're going to have the Chinese and the Mongols versus the Rus and the French over here. Potential for a lot of nights, I feel.
Yeah, well, Rus is one of those that in these drafts, in these series, you kind of have to do the draft a certain way because it is sniped by your opponent. So you really want a Cav Civ, you want mobility, but there's only a few Civs that can kind of do more than one things with that in their wheelhouse, and Rus is definitely one of those. So they can also play the fast castle horse archer game or even stay feudal and go pure archers like the olden days.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to go, especially in a map like Kurlogar, because this is anything but a standard map. But you have these waterways out there. I've seen some teams trying to fish. I've seen some teams just trying to straight up go to castle, play this as an open land map. So I feel like, in many ways, this is probably the most unpredictable map of the 5 that we might have today. The rest of them, I feel like the meta is a lot more established. But I think it tells you a lot that one of the teams, or one of the picks here from Meow Micah and Kaio were Japanese, whereas on the other side you have the English. So I get the feeling that Meow Police is kind of leaning towards more of that land-focused play, whereas Meow Micah and Kaio might have been thinking about getting some fishing going early on.
Yeah, Mongol can really take control. They can just start out with those Dark Age spears and punish if other people are going too far out with their docks, or can even just deny gold, deny an age up for someone like French, which we might just see some Dark Age spears in general, even if they don't even scout any fishing, just to do the typical tower rush onto that French gold.
That would be interesting. In fact, I could see that working because you are also up against the Rus. So worst case scenario, you hit the gold mine of that Rus player. Both of these civilizations could and maybe will rely on knights in feudal, which means that if you can cause disruption to that gold income, that's going to be a big thing. We'll see if that's the direction that Meow Micah and Kaio go for, but it is just a couple of seconds that separates us from game number 1 here. Pro Quitter seed number 16 versus Meow Police, an elimination match coming up here in the Winter Team Championship 2.
Any second.
Any moment now.
We can hear the volume in the background, just getting things all set up and just, you know, letting the suspense build, getting everyone all hyped up in the crowd.
Yeah, I love the tease. All right, here we go. Ladies and gents, welcome to game number 1, the Pro Quitter versus Meow Police. This is an elimination match in the group stage of the EGCTV Winter Team Championships here in 2024. With pink and purple, we have Meow, Micah, and Kaio from Pro Quitter, and Blue and Axlav will be playing for Meow Police.
Yeah, and right off the bat, we can kind of see which teams are moving out with villagers towards the water. Kyo already making a dock, being Chinese, gonna build that dock very quick and produce those fishing ships rather quick. So gonna get that nice little advantage as far as some extra eco for himself.
I think this is the biggest wild cards when you look at this map, Kerlogar. I've seen some teams going straight to the water, getting that little extra influx of resources in terms of fishing. But at the same time, if you do that, you're delayed going into Feudal Age, and that could be dangerous. At the end of the day, this is a reasonably open land-style map in many ways. When you look at the starting base of the players, it's very reminiscent to Dry Arabia. You do have that deer pack a little closer, but besides that, the openness, so to say, is kind of similar to what you would experience on a map like Dry Arabia.
Yeah, we can see some of these players pushing in their own deer with their scouts. Some of them, like Meow, able to utilize something else, and his Gur pushing in the deer nice and close to his town center. And there we go. We do see the Dark Age barracks and going to try to put a little bit of pressure on the other side. Gonna start sending some spears across the map.
This is an interesting opening here by the Mongols. It's definitely not unprecedented, but at the same time, when you look at how the Mongols are played, at least recently, oftentimes it's a Keshik play. And if you go for a Dark Age Rax opening here, you kind of delay that Keshik build-up quite a bit. At the same time, when you're playing against Rus and the French, you can do a lot of damage with that Mongol Tower Rush. And I guess the idea here could be that Meow Micah is just going to cause disruption, and it kind of just allows Kaio to do whatever he wants, basically.
Yeah, and you can't forget that usually that Keshik play is when you have some trade building up behind it. There are no corner neutral markets on this map. Hard for him to start building up some extra sort of economy to support that gold. And it would be a really kind of all-any play to do that in a sense. And this is where delaying the French as much as you possibly can, especially if he can't get that first night out, is absolutely massive. Believe, did he already get the auto attack onto the mining camp?
Villager is getting pulled away here. Blit doesn't have the gold for a knight just yet. He's already clicked up the Feudal Age. Might actually lose the scout over here, playing with fire, so to say. But at least he buys some time for these gold miners.
Yeah, it doesn't end up canceling the mining camp instead. Just gathers enough for that first night if he so desires, and one night is enough to cause some damage, is enough to kind of push those spears back at times if they don't have some extra reinforcements, or if they split off, you really have to keep them together.
Yeah, that's a big commitment into Spearman. We've got 6 of those out there, which means that this initial night isn't going to be able to clean this up by any means. At the same time, however, it means that Blid and Axlav will both be substantially quicker into Feudal Age compared to their counterparts.
Yeah, Meow also hasn't done a great job of scouting. Blid has a nice old back gold for himself, already moved on out there with some villagers. So while he was denied on gold, it was more of just a delay than a deny, but some bounty bonus going on over. And there's still some extra eco behind this for Kyo and Meow. Feudal Ages just now being dropped, whereas Feudal Ages being finished on the other side.
Yeah, that's the trade-off that you're getting over here. You're delaying your Feudal Age if you're playing with a Dock or a Dark Age Spear Rush. But at the same time, especially if you're Kaio, you had water uncontested, so you do have a little extra influx of food. Of course, the big question begins with how Blid and Axlav will play this. We have a knight coming out for Blid. Axlav doesn't really have much over here, and this is a big one. This gold mine gets found out, and the villager that was working on it was actually one of the damaged ones. So you gotta be cautious here if you're Blid. He had a tower foundation that he ended up canceling, means that right now he has no means of protecting this gold mine.
My guess is he was about to get housed instead. You usually have so few villagers on the wood line early when you're French that you just don't have enough to spare for some towers. And so instead moves out to that front gold mine again, but has enough for the tower this time, rushing it on down with 4 villagers, does get scouted out. but Meow at least is able to get another set of bounty over for himself.
And this is looking better and better now for Kaio and Meow. Let's not forget, Meow torched down 2 mining camps. That's a lot of bounty when you consider, you know, early game resource influx. So this spear rush definitely paid off. Blade is only on 2 knights, and he actually had to queue up a horseman over here. That just tells you that he's definitely, you know, handcuffed by that lack of gold income. And that's going to hinder his ability to build up those knights. At the same time, it looks like Xlav is going straight to castle here, though. Not a single unit coming out for him. He's piling up both gold and food. We could see horse archers coming into play, though. And that could be massive. Horse archers, they have a lot of mobility here. And it's not like Kaio and Meow have a lot of tools to fight those off right now.
Yeah, and that's really like I've seen French and Roos paired together a lot in team games, a lot in this tournament, as we just see a scout get sniped on out by some spears. Barbican able to get a little bit of extra damage, but that really feels like Roos's wheelhouse when it becomes, you know, this pairing. They go, all right, I'm just going to go to castle while you've delayed the other team a little bit. You've taken the damage. Now I'm going to start taking over with my mobility, because horse archers can just create such a good role, take over with such good map control.
At the same time, it looks like Kaio also wants to go to Castle Age here directly. I don't think, yeah, he's in Song Dynasty already, but he's piling up golden food for Castle as well. First, the castle should be Xlav, though. He is going to click up just now. At the same time, the Knights of Blood are still looking for targets here. He did end up losing his scout. He added a new one. That just tells you how important that the vision is for the Knights to acquire targets. That's a lot of spearmen, though, and the tower is not finished.
Oh, and he only has 2 Knights here. Meow just saying, I'm going to take down the first tower. Instead, turns towards the villagers. Villagers jump inside the outpost. Scout falls yet again. Knights have to run away, and villagers do as well. Spears, though, they want to take this fight. Knights!
Oh, the Knights had to be sacrificed here to save the villagers. So many of those wills were low HP. 5 of the villagers could jump into the tower, but the rest of them couldn't. They just had to make their way to the other tower through that maze of spearmen. That's a lot of damage done on Blid, though. Xlav really needs to start carrying this game for the next few minutes, because his teammate took a big beating.
Yeah, the hard part now is Keo just feels like he is going full boom behind this, and it's untouched. You mentioned Castle. It's not just Castle for Keo. He's dropped a second TC, he's Song Dynasty, and he has that fishing for himself. He has a little bit of everything, and he has that Chinese boom.
That's a great point. I actually just now noticed that second DC, and you know, again, there's not much from Blid and Xlav to contest it just yet. They combine for 4 knights, and that's basically it. Sure enough, horse archers could become a reality soon for Xlav, but by the time that happens, Kyo and Meow will have a substantially better economy. But if they want to do damage, this is the window. They have a cost age advantage, horse archers will be on the way, and Kaio is still at least a minute away from castle.
Yeah, the big problem with the horse archers, though, is they don't do damage to buildings. If there's structures already down, such as the Barbican, such as a TC, they can't really fight into that too well. They're really good at picking off villagers on exposed eco, but it's going to take a while for them to get there. Speaking of exposed eco, this is a huge raid. No,
he doesn't notice.
Still, he's all in on the gold on the other side, and he needs to be looking at his.
Oh my! It's a back and forth, but the difference is that Blid might just get away with his vills. He might lose 1 or 2, but Meow hasn't yet noticed that he lost all his gold miners.
Yeah, no longer going to be able to start queuing up those Keshiks that he was rotating into. However, another 5 villagers are or should go down. For Blid's side, those villagers are quite low. Horse archers coming to help, though, and Meow wants this. He's probably noticed at this point he wants revenge. He wants blood after losing so much.
The difference here is that the spearmen take a lot more time to chase down these vills. Ultimately, they do get cleaned up, and Kaio and Meow retain a 10 eco lead. But at the same time, this is huge here for Blid and Xlav. Without that raid on the gold mine, they would have been in a very tough position.
Spears, they're still coming back. They want some more bounty. He's just all in on this front side of the French gold, and there's nothing that Xlav can really do to help this that much. He's trying to build those horse archer numbers up. You can see him trying to help, but all this time we talked about it, the boom for the Chinese behind this.
Yeah, that's the scary detail here. Xlav is doing his best to try and just hold this flood of Mongols at bay. Horsemen being mixed in as well. Wololo is going to push these guys away. No conversion, but the con goes down and the horse archer numbers start being built up. I wonder, if you're Blid, are you considering maybe dropping a second TC here? You took a big beating, you gotta catch up in eco at some point.
And you can see the damage on the gold. Meow having to build horsemen, and now it's not just damage on the gold. Villagers moved out to berries, having to be idled out, and finally pulling that whole military mass back. But this is where he says, all right, I carried the mass right now. I've delayed them as much as possible. It's your time to take on over.
Yeah, now it's KO's time to go. He's actually going crossbows here, which is a little surprising against horse archers. Crossbows are a good general purpose unit, but I wouldn't think it's a good matchup against all these horse archers. And I feel like this is crucial for Xlav here. They need time. They need time to get Blid back into this game. They are down by 18 eco. So if KO is not making a direct counter to these horse archers, that just buys some time for Meow Police to get back on track in terms of eco. But they gotta go for a second TC here. One of them, potentially both.
I mean, the thing is even if they go second TC, it doesn't match 2 TC Song. They both have to go 2 TCs, but at that point, you know, this is where Kyo's going to be fully online, already starting to probably contest some of those relics onto the map, or at the very least, we can see the crossbow mass and how fast it's building up.
I love the small groups of horse archers though, and Blid actually built up 10 knights here. Finally, he's got access to gold, and he's starting to use that. Sure enough, the crossbows will pick these apart. Yeah, but look at, oh my. Oh my, I just jinxed that so bad.
Oh, and he's going back out to the deer. He was on gold and deer out there, basically his whole entire economy. And Meow had transitioned into mobility, had Keshiks, had horsemen, and he's punishing that hard. They're both now at about the same villager count after all of this damage.
I was just about to praise Blid and Xlav, saying that they've got multiple small groups of knights and horse archers running around. This is their time to cut into that eco deficit. But as I was thinking about that, I just saw all these gold miners and villagers on food getting massacred. Now they're down by 30 eco. They really gotta start picking off eco from the other side. Otherwise, this game is just going to slip out of their control.
I mean, this is where you look up at the ecos, and it's kind of like everyone's on the same level-ish, except for Kyo, and he's up at 70. He's doubling these other ecos. Everyone's been kind of damaging each other quite a bit. And we're seeing the Mongol TC get dove, but it's getting dove by horse archers, which will get shredded by TC fire.
Now, Blid and Xlav still have a dominant army over here. 26 horse archers, 10 knights. The army value is just so much more in their favor. I'm not a fan of these knights fighting spearmen directly, but they're idling out a lot of Meow's eco. And, you know, as much as Blid took a big beating, now Meow is also kind of struggling with the eco. Some harassment going on Kaio's side as well, but Kaio does have a massive resource bank. What is he up to with that?
He might just be going towards Imp in a sec, or the biggest thing, he might not have the production that he needs for all the crossbows that he wants to queue on up.
Yeah, this horse archer mass is getting scary though. And with all this map control, Xlav can also collect the relics to make up for that eco deficit. Horse archers just using masterfully over here to pick off all these workers. Things are starting to get better and better here for Blid and Xlav, I feel.
Yeah, even after all this though, Mongol, French, they're on the same economy numbers still. 37 villagers each, and they both just feel like they've taken so much damage. Kyo, untouched, it feels like. 72 villagers, military numbers building, 10 crossbows in queue. That is absolutely wild how many numbers he can pump, and that number, it just keeps climbing. He's up at 24 crossbows already.
What is he gonna do with all these crossbows though? I feel like the concern is that they're just very slow, and sure enough, they might be good to just defend against the knights over here. Then they aren't going to be amazing against small groups of horse archers. And at the same time, they're just kind of turtling back at home, conceding all this map control to Blid and Xlav. Blid and Xlav have to use that. They gotta pick up the relics. They gotta secure the sacred sites. As I'm saying that, Xlav is now moving towards the sacred sites. And again, I feel like they still need to add an extra town center or so here just to make up for that eco deficit.
Yeah, the eco numbers have they've stayed at that just barely 25 down number or so for a little bit now. So it hasn't been extending like it should because they're the ones being the aggressors. But this is what Keo wants. He wants to start slowly walling off this map. And Meow is still roaming, this time going for some Roost villagers. A late reaction from XLav.
He might just make it back home. Textile's working wonders over here. He's going to lose 1 or 2 wills, but I mean, given the circumstances, this is the best he could have hoped for.
It could have been way worse, but they really need to keep up this aggression. It feels so bad to pull these armies back because this is the only thing that really feels like it's been keeping them in this game. But Meow diving the wood line, going in for more villagers. So you said it could have been worse, and this is definitely getting worse now. 3, 4 more villagers going down. Not enough room in that wooden fortress. Not enough room in the TC for all of these villagers. And again, a late reaction. He's just attacking with the villagers.
This, I feel like, is the big difference. Every time Kaio and Meow dive the enemy base, they get away with a lot of villager picks. Blood and XLav have been really good when it comes to doing chip damage, getting away with a couple of villager kills, but they never had these massive findings beside that one hit on the gold mine before. And that's the difference maker. Every time Kaio and Meow hit villagers, they get away with 5, 6, 7 kills, and now it's showing when you look at the overall villager count.
Yeah, and Chinese, when they're most vulnerable is when they're making that food granary transition, when they start running out of the deer, they start running out of their initial sheep and berries. And Keo, he's already walled off and he's already started to make a huge farm transition behind this.
Now, one thing I like about the setup here for Keo and Meow, besides the villager count, is that now they're getting some walls going. And this is limiting the ability of Blid and XLav so much more when it comes to hitting the eco. So far, they had that mobility advantage with the horse archers and the knights. But if they're bumping into walls, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to hit that Chinese economy, which now is at 90 villagers. I mean, Keo alone has basically the same villager count as the 2 opponents combined.
Yeah, and horse archers trying to dive a Mongol TC again. Crossbows here to defend it. And oh my, look at how pretty that is just behind these walls as well. And more granary farms are going to continue to be dropped around that, just all inside those 3 granaries. And the Chinese eco, you can look at the resources Keo has. His only thing he's lacking to go imp is food because he's been spending it all. 3,000 gold in the bank.
Another raid on the right side. Once again, Meow is using that big clump of horsemen to get that hit on the food eco. And it's just getting way too painful now for Blid and XLav. They are kind of spreading themselves out to take these resources on the map. But Keo and Meow have been really good when it comes to intercepting those vills. Meanwhile, when you look at the Pro Quitter team, they play a very condensed setup. So it's extremely difficult now to hit that eco. That food eco behind the walls is very, very difficult for Blid and XLav to raid.
Yeah, Meow Police's only chance right now is to go for this Royal Institute kind of night timing play with the royal bloodlines, but I still think at this point it might be too late. Meow matching the Castle Age as well with the Step Redoubt, but there's just so much more eco behind the side of Pro Quitter.
Yeah, the eco is now looking very, very grim here for Blid and XLav, but they still have 53 horse archers and 20 knights, so the royal bloodlines are no joke either. They gotta find a way to catch up. They really gotta collect those relics on the left side. They've been uncontested for a while, and that would be a great way to at least compensate for some of this eco deficit.
Speaking of relics, a chance of a Wololo coming in, but Horseman easily able to dodge it, causing more idle time. Blid's got about 10, 15 villagers there running around. They get spotted out though, and the Horsemen are gonna make some more connections at the very least, even if they don't get kills. A lot of vills running around, but they do a great surround. Looks like 2 or 3, 4 more going down.
These casualties are just not sustainable at this point for Blid and XLav. Meow is also now pulling ahead in terms of villagers. And look at Keo. It's one thing that he's on 2,200 food. That is what he needs for Imperial, but he's sitting on 5,000 gold already. it's easy Imperial, and even going into Imperial isn't going to just completely deplete his resource bank. And in the meantime, Meow is doing such a good job with these Horseman raids.
Yeah, there's so many times you go to Imperial Age and you don't have the gold for all the upgrades that you want. Kiyo's going to be able to just click all of them if he wants to once he ages on up with how much he has in his bank right now. Speaking of aging up, he should be dropping Imperial at any point in time now.
He's chasing down these Horsemen as well, and as much as crossbows aren't, well, they aren't a direct counter to Horsemen, but when you get to this many, you start becoming just cost efficient because crossbows are a really good general purpose unit. The value that they deliver relative to their price is actually really good, and you can see that the horse archers are unwilling to fight Horseman. This.
Perfectly timed, pulled back, crossbows still stepping up, and the Knights, they don't want to take this fight. They can't take this fight. I think the crossbows almost could win this alone.
Yeah, the crossbows will win this alone if Blid and Xlav stand and fight. Knights, even with Royal Bloodlines, they cannot fight off 60 or so crossbows, and it's actually remarkable that Kaio is still not going up to Imperial here. Raids continuing. Now they have a 50 eco lead, and there's just nowhere to go for Blid and Xlav now. They do stand and fight, but they should have no chance here.
Even if they win this fight, there's just too many losses here to make this sustainable. They're not going to be able to remass. The Knight number is going to be down at just about nothing. Horse archers, again, they won't be able to close. They won't be able to do any damage. And finally, Great Wall Gatehouse coming in the middle of the map.
This is a better fight for Blid and Xlav than I anticipated it would be. And sure enough, they clean this army up before the upgrades come in. That could be the last hope here for Blid and Xlav. They're down by 60 eco at this point, but at least they clean this army up just before the upgrades come in. They will have one opportunity to maybe hit the eco and see if they can come up with something. But if they cannot do substantial damage here on Kaio or even Meow, that Imperial is going to win the game.
This is when the Chinese Civ makes the change, though. It's just spam Palace Guard into eco. They're not going to be able to stop Imperial Age Palace. Oh, and there they are already.
True.
He's already making the swap. This is exactly what is unstoppable. And you could just see the devastation of the raids. Pro Quitter has not stopped. They've always had a smaller group splitting off, even when they've been taking raids, even when they've been taking damage. Looks like we might finally see the GG in the chat. Villagers aren't moving. They're just deciding to take the damage. Oh no.
If you had any questions about the GG before this, now you should not have. That's gotta be it. Way too much damage taken here by Xlav, and really, you gotta credit Meow for all these raids. He himself took a big beating, but he was able to leverage that small group of cavalry he always had, and just kept raiding and raiding and raiding. And at the end of the day, Blid and Xlav never really got beyond 100 villagers.
Yeah, it was really bad when now Kiyo is just ahead of the eco of both Blid and Xlav combined himself. I think were Kiyo and Meow the team that I think one of them disconnected and they were still able to win the game 1v2 because it was a situation like this where it would have been like Meow disconnecting and Kiyo still able to close this game out because he's so far ahead.
Yeah, Blid and Xlav still trying to stay in this one. A new town center has been added by Xlav, but it's just too little too late, I feel. Meow is now piling up resources for Imperial. And when you look at the army, now it's almost pick your poison. If you're Xlav and you're trying to reboom, you're not going to be able to afford an army. You're an age behind compared to Kaio, and Xlav doesn't even have food income. They don't have a sustainable farming eco set up like Kaio does, or they don't have the pastures that Meow has.
Yeah, it's actually, this is a problem I see happen in so many team games where someone takes damage and they think the reaction and the correct play is to drop a town center and that's going to be their chance back in the game. And it's like, you're just making yourself further behind because now they have all the aggression still. You're going to be the one back in your base. They're an age ahead. They have the better units. It's not going to be a pretty situation, but we've known that for quite a while. It's been a grim sight for the villagers on the French and Roof side for a while.
Yeah, I value that they are trying to get back into this game. Oh, another raid down south on the hunt. That might just be the final nail in the coffin. That is just not sustainable anymore. They're stuck at 45, 46 villagers for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, it has not gone up at all. Every single time you're like, oh, they're starting to, nope, okay, it's back down. Here's another. It's like they get chunked so hard. Usually with these times, you'll see these raids come in and, 1, 2 vills go down. Instead, it's been 5, 8, 10 villagers going down with these bigger raids. And finally, game gets called. Game number 1 goes over to Pro Quitters.
This was a very interesting and weird game in a way, because Blit and Axlav, despite that early damage they took, they had that recovery point when the Horse Archer mass started building up, and Kyo and Meow also had some shaky moments when Meow lost all the gold miners to the Knights. But at the end of the day, I feel like this came down to the ability, or the inability, depending on the side, to hit the enemy eco in the second part of the game. That villager graph is just looking very sad for Blit and Axlav. They never really got that eco going, whereas Kyo, beyond the 10 or so minute mark, was basically untouched.
Yeah, you could just see that line graph just go straight up for a little while for Kyo, whereas all the other ones taking a lot more chunk damage. And then going over to the military, Kyo didn't have to do stuff for a while. He was chilling. He went 2 TC fishing, castle, and then went straight up to the top and got to take over the game.
Well, that's a win in the books for Kyo and Meow. Once again, this is an elimination match, so loser is going to be out of the tournament. We're going to get back to the lobby here to take a look at what the second game is going to be. Pro Quitter up 1-0. This is their first win in the group stage, by the way. They got 3-0'd by Beastie and Marine Lord. But now they have a win, a crucial win here, and it looks like we're going to head to a much more, I guess, classic map here. Dry Arabia coming up, and we're going to have a similar setup here this time around for Pro Quitters. Jeanne d'Arc and Rus, kind of similar to what we've seen from Meow Police on the previous map, but they're going to face off against the Abbas, or I should say the Ayyubids and the English. This is very intriguing because I'm curious how Jeanne d'Arc and the Rus will deal with Camel Lancers.
It's not even going to be Camel Lancers in my eyes. I think Camel Lancers are kind of a overhyped unit at times. In my eyes, it's really going to be the Desert Raiders. It's the unit that everyone loves to go into in team games. Everyone loves to utilize their mobility. I won't say the animation canceling aspect of it, but just being able to rotate, and they counter so many units. They force multiple different reactions, and you can go where you get them for free, or you can just go with the growth wing still and just start dropping the typical production buildings and playing feudal Desert Raiders for a while until you need to go castle.
That's a great point as well. I feel like you have a lot of flexibility in terms of that. Desert Raiders, I agree with you. I think one of the key things with them is that they give you that flexibility to deal with different types of units. But at the same time, it's also like part of the reason why this is such a good answer to this combination of civilizations is because either Jeanne d'Arc or the Rus will rely on Knights, probably Jeanne d'Arc. And then the Rus might actually go for Horse Archers like we've seen in the game number 1 as well. Nevertheless, Camel Archers, or well, I should say Desert Raiders, will be a good early game answer to them. And it's a reasonably sustainable way to even fight off Horse Archers if you think about it.
Yeah, they scale really well into the later stages, and we know how king mobility is in team games, so they really want to go with those high mobile units, which is exactly where I would expect Pro Quitter to go into, like you mentioned. It should be JD going with the typical Royal Knight mass, and Rus probably playing into that fast castle, going with a ton of Horse Archers. It makes the ecos so easy for Rus too. You just send on to food, you send on to the wood line, and then you start slowly grabbing the relics, and all your relic gold just goes into all the upgrades that you want. So it just makes things very, very easy, very, very kind of very one or two dimensional when it comes to your eco.
I wonder how the English will play this though, because I think that's our wild card. We could see an Abbey of Kings play here. We've actually seen that being utilized to heal up friendly units. Works really well when you have a teammate with Knights. At the same time, we could just see like a full-on aggression over here. I would not be surprised if Meow Police just said, listen, late game didn't really work out for us in game number 1. Maybe we gotta play aggro. Let's go Longbows, Desert Raiders, and see how Jeanne d'Arc and Rus can fight that off early game.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem with going longbows is just their lack of mobility. While you want to go all in, all it takes is one single Royal Knight to split off and then start hitting the line, hitting the reinforcement line. Then you can't move forward. You can't even move forward with a massive 5. One Royal Knight will demolish it. So you really kind of get stuck where you're like, okay, now you have to send a Desert Raider over, and then the push starts getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and then all of a sudden the other side is raiding your base with knights, and you're stuck. So I really feel like they're going to play into the mobility. The first play you said, go into the king. We might see a 2 TC behind it, and then you can kind of have a lot of different options, whether it's castle, white tower, or whether it is playing more into the feudal age then with more eco.
That's a great point you're bringing up here. I think that is probably the biggest point of tactical emphasis when you look at team games. Do you prefer to go for a composition that might be strong, but it's very slow, so you're kind of handcuffed when it comes to rotating and assisting the teammate? Or are you going for something that has higher mobility, but might just lose a straight-up battle? And you feel like the way we've seen it in game number 1 with the Knights and the Horse Archers, the way that we are likely going to see it from the other team, Knights and Horse Archers, they want to utilize that mobility. And the English aren't necessarily good for that with the longbows. Now, in a straight-up battle, longbows will absolutely eviscerate all the horse archers. It's just a matter of whether you actually get that direct battle, or you're just going to be stuck running circles.
Yeah, and that is always the big problem. It's are you going to get that battle? What it takes is you have to basically have your side walled, because then the mobility can't circle around, hit your eco, force you back, and then you can really start pushing together as one. But you really have to have your side full walled, and it takes a lot of resources, a lot of eco to do that. And that is one where it allows the other side to do some damage, do some kill some vills while they're walling, and it's just easier said than done when it comes to saving your eco, especially when it's 2 civs with mobility.
Well, we just have 1.5 minutes left to go here. Again, this is an elimination match, which means that the losing team is going to be out. The winner is going to play a decider match, and that's going to be against the Royal Couple of the North tomorrow in Group A. Dimu and Kiljardi will be the opponents for the winning team today to get a spot in the top 8 and the playoffs. Of course, we do have Group B, C, and D deciders, or I should say elimination match coming up today, and deciders tomorrow. Next Saturday and Sunday we will have the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the grand finals as well. So this event is going to conclude next weekend with the single elimination stage.
Oh, exactly. But back to this series, the big thing that, we haven't talked a ton about is how the Civ drafts work. So it is one where there is no repeating the Civs that you've played. So now that we're seeing a lot of these kind of, I would say, comfort pick Civs, when you're playing your first couple games, you're obviously going to pick your favorite Civs, your most comfortable Civs, and you start getting later in the series, it starts getting a little bit more difficult for the routes to take, and more importantly, the pairings to take on your side. So Civs left over need to have some variability between it, but it's it's going to be difficult, especially if this series ends up getting tied up 1-1 here.
Well, it's just a couple of seconds left to go until game number 2, Dry Arabia, a lot more classic map than the game number 1, Kurlogar was. We're getting ready to jump inside. It's going to be Jeanne d'Arc and Rus facing off against the English and the Ayyubids. Pro Quitters up 1-0 against Meow Police.
And right on into it, seeing the perspective of XLV, and he is moving out onto the berries as that Ayyubid's in the color yellow, his teammate Blid color green as the English. On the other side, and on the team of Pro Quitters, Keo playing the Rus in the color pink, and lastly Meow as JD in the color purple.
We've seen this kind of a combination from Meow Police in game number 1, a French-style knight civilization and Rus as horse archers. So I would assume that's going to be the go-to plan here for Keo and Meow. The question is how Blid and Axlab will play this. In a previous game, we've seen that Dark Age aggression can throw off these builds a lot, because if you're trying to fast castle with the Rus and you're trying to play knights with the French or the French variant, no matter what happens, a Dark Age or early game aggression towards that gold mine can throw off those timings a lot. So we'll have to see how XLab and Blid will play this, how aggressive they're going to open here. And I think the big wildcard is what Blid is going to do. Is that going to be a Council Hall? Is that going to be an Abbey of Kings? How many longbows are we going to see? Will they try to play this aggressive? Or maybe they're going to play towards Castle Age a little more, use the English as a Knight Civ, and then XLab with Camels? I feel like there's a lot more... there are a lot more question marks on the side of Meow Police compared to Pro Quitters.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one where certain civs, when they get paired together, you kind of know that they're a little bit more one-dimensional. Whereas I will say, Roos is not always one-dimensional. Getting paired with a civ that you know is going to go Cav means you don't want to always go into Cav unless you're paired against a certain other civ matchup. But here I wouldn't expect double knights here. We would expect the horse archers to fast castle play, especially if we don't see too much early aggression from the other side.
That's a lot of sheep coming in here for XLab, though. Obviously, playing as the Ayyubids, berries will be the primary source of food, but in team games like this, it's huge to get that extra backup food, and this is something that's in stark contrast to what we've seen in the previous game. Bled and XLab got raided very badly on those little pockets of eco on the deer and the berries, so having that reserve food under your town center could be immensely valuable. And at the same time, you're also taking this away from civilizations that are usually very food-consuming. Jeanne d'Arc, Bruce. So when you look at Kiwa and Mio Micah, they don't have a lot of sheep to work with, as I can see.
Yeah, Golden Gate is going down, School of Cav going down, but we saw the other side. It was actually Logistics Wings, which we've seen a lot of times paired together with another, civ that goes Royal Knights per se, because then you can heal them on up. But I've also seen it go against the Knights. You can just sit those dervish on your villagers on the gold. They'll out heal a Royal Knight just after the charge and attacking your villagers, so you're all good to go there, and then you can transition it into going military. And it looks like the Ayyubids are wanting to play more of a fast castle play, where it looks like, I guess, Blid maybe going to be a little bit more defensive with longbows and just try to play the wall yourself in and help your teammate. But the big problem there is it's hard to move out and help your teammate with longbows. Scouts moving out and about across. This is when now game will start opening up when the feudal ages are finishing.
Yeah, indeed, this is where things will get interesting, and it's a Rax plus Council Hall. So we are going to see that super classic day number 1 English build of like longbows and spearmen. I don't know how to feel about it, but it kind of tells me that we might just see a one-man show here in Feudal Age from Blid being the aggressor and just trying to throw things off for the opponents. But the distance to cover is so massive, it will take time for him to arrive on the other side. And I think what's worrisome here for a potentially slow civilization like the English with the longbows is the fact that this map is very open. Even for the Tri-Arabia standards, when you look at that mid-map area, there's not a single patch of trees. It's basically wide open.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard for English to move out, and the wide openness it just plays into the hands of Pro Quitter. Both of their team or army compositions that they should go to love the nice open spaces. We're actually going to see JD move out, probably go for those boar, go ahead and secure up some extra nice XP for herself. And we are already starting to see the first couple English farms.
Yeah, Jeanne d'Arc with the Archer version coming up here. And we do have the Dervishes out there from XLab. That's something that we've seen quite frequently being utilized. And it's going to be in good combination with a fast castle here. You see XLab is piling up resources for Castle Age. So I don't know how to feel about this Spearman longbow opening. It feels weird for a team game. I feel like in a team game, you want to focus on one style of a unit because you're going to have a teammate that helps you out, and you don't want to pick up upgrades for different types of units early game. But at the same time, Blid might just be concerned that he's going to get overwhelmed before XLab can start getting what I presume would be Camel Lancers out now that he's fast castling.
I guess so. It just still feels like you kind of still play into the same hands. They don't have the best pure raw stats, even facing against knights, especially if the knights get upgraded. But as fighting as the composition together should be okay in the most part. You know, if they're taking those fights with camel lancers and longbows, the longbows will just snipe out all of the horse archers, like you had mentioned in the pregame. But I don't expect Team Pro Quitter to take those fights head on.
EO is still very far away from Castle Edge, though, so if he's going for horse archers, it's going to take a long time for him to get there, and indeed, this just feels like a complete turtle build by Bled, with longbows and spears. I see some farms coming out, so I wonder if this is kind of that delayed build-up style opening, where he's just playing very turtle, but he's getting a farm transition going, so he's going to have a very robust and safe food economy to go forward with. It's going to be the growth coming up here for Xlav. Nice little villager boost to work with.
Oh.
And to be fair, oh, look at this. Range is double range from Kaio. I feel like this is a problem for Kaio and Meow Micah. They won't have anything that deals with camel lancers. And it's not like the archers will be enough to break the defense of English longbows either.
I mean, the thing I'm scared for, though, is Blid does not want to move across and out too early here with archers coming and getting massed up. The knights, they're going to be happy to take this fight with JD here, go ahead and secure some extra XP. And that's not too big of a mass. I want to say, yeah, there's only 4 or 5 spears there on that front side, and there's 6 Royal Knights already just themselves. That's not even including the JD ability. So they can make it alone just with Knights can clear this mass.
Keep in mind, you do have a Dervish out there for healing, and it's understandable that Blood is posturing right here. I'm starting to see the kind of idea behind the strategy here for Meow Police. Full English, but the point is not to attack, the point is not even to defend, it's to secure these relics early on for the Dervish play. Most of the relics are on the far right, and they're completely uncontested by pro quitters, so Xlav should be able to secure the majority of these relics. The one that's kind of contested mid-map is the one that Blid is going for as well to defend.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you blink. Golden Gate allows Kyoto to change up those resources. He's about to drop Castle Age, and he's already got triple range prepared too. So it will end up being that horse archer play for himself. And there it is, exactly what we were expecting. And it's actually going to be a 4th range. He's already got the blacksmith too. There's the first couple JD abilities, and this is what I was scared for. This is what I was talking about. Oh, spears are going to start getting focused down though. Knight. Just gets out. 1 knight falls. There's only a few spears left, and this has been so much free XP for JD as well, and there's not a spear left. 1 relic to say for themselves after all of this fight, and all of the knights are still alive and roaming.
Meow Micah timed this perfectly. He scouted this force here. He knew that they were posturing there for the relic. Spearmen coming in to reinforce, but it's only 3 of them out there. They're focusing Jeanne d'Arc though. She gets away just in time. A couple of knights go down as well. But I guess at the end of the day, Xlav is able to secure the relic, and that's a big thing for him. He's got to be up to 2 relics. He's moving out for the rest of them as we speak. He got a big buff from the villagers as well as he aged up, and now Camel Lancers will be on the way. The concern is the rate of this build up here. He's at 1 Camel Lancer right now, and he's facing 11 knights. The math just doesn't check out right now.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, you know, we might not see what we have to counter the Camel Lancers. It's like, this is enough knights to counter the Camel Lancers, and we're about to blink, and there's going to be 15 horse archers out on the field roaming, if not more here in just a little bit, because that buildup was just so prepped from Kyo. He has 4 ranges. Like I said, the economy's so condensed. He's got 18 on food, 16 on wood, and that's it. He doesn't need any on gold, because now he's going to start grabbing relics himself.
I absolutely love that from Kyo. He's understanding that this play lives and dies with the relics for Xlav. If he can haul in most of these relics with the dervishes, their eco is going to be in a really good spot, and they can just flood Camel Lancers. So he's going to drop his own monastery just to potentially sneak away with a couple of the relics over here. And the big fight is going to be for this right side over here. Most of the relics are still in here, and I don't think you can fight this just yet if you're Blid and Xlav. There are so many knights out there. You're going to have a Vololo to hold them hostage, though.
Wololo comes down. I think it gets prepped pretty early. but I don't know if you want to end up taking the fight with those knights. I think while you would win it, you would still just lose a lot of knights. You're fine with giving up this one more relic here, and I think the next fight's the fight you take for Pro Quitter.
Why is that dervish hiding in the stealth forest? Was that a misclick? That could be huge. You're making a rush for the relics right now, and you're putting that relic in harm's way, also making that dervish just not do anything right now, and that could mean that you're losing out on some of these other relics.
We can just see one get taken. We can also see a Camel Lancer take a little bit of damage. That won't be a big deal. Should get healed up in the long run. What I'm scared for is this is where Meow saw the whole slow army pushing forward from XLab and said, all right, I'll just go dive the base now. Or sorry, slow immobile army of Blid, and I'll just go dive the base because there's still not enough Camel Lancers to defend this all up. One
knight of the knights are badly beaten up though. I love the walls. I absolutely love the walls from Blid. That's something that we haven't seen from them in game number 1. And it just helps a lot to contain these raids. He knows that he's got a slow-moving army. He needs to make sure it doesn't get circles ran around him. And let's not forget, like, Blid does have a good food eco set up with the farms. And he does have a sizable standing army. 19 longbows, 17 spearmen. It's no pushover. And I think it synergizes very well with all these Camel Lancers. I feel like Blid and XLab are in a decent spot here. They've secured the majority of the relics. And now XLab is moving villagers onto stone. I think he wants a second DC.
I think it's not only going to be a second, he's going to go 3. Usually this is what the Ayubids do. They grab a couple of the relics, they start moving, taking some map control with their Camel Lancers, and then they go, all right, now I'm going 3 TC real quick, give me some time. They don't have a lot of eco bonuses though, but great raid coming in on those forward villagers from JD, and now armies grouping together, they want to fight, but English gonna go ahead and get reinforcements taken out, and this is what we were talking about before in the pregame. It's so easy to force English on back, and not only English back, both armies now having to push back and fall back.
Yeah, Spearmen will brace against these knights, though. Longbows are kind of detached from this force. Still, though, it's difficult. We talked about this in the pregame. Horse archers versus longbows, you can run circles around them, you can intercept reinforcements, but taking a direct fight is difficult to do.
Yep. Meow needs to get back onto some food, doesn't have a ton of food back behind his base left. He's actually onto some side berries. He's onto the berries behind Keo. Speaking of, Keo has dropped a second TC himself behind this.
I feel like if you're Blid and XLab, you might want to play this a little bit more cautiously. You're still in feudal with Blid. So sure enough, you have longbows, but you're facing off against Castle Age horse archers, and that's a lot of knights as well. And XLab, if he wants to go for multiple TCs, then might as well focus a little bit more on getting those walls complete and then getting that eco rolling, really. I feel like they're risking getting completely cleaned up and overwhelmed mid-map.
Yeah, horse archers slowly moving up, but taking some of these fights. You can see with the longbows range, the longbows are still taking beneficial trades, even being an age behind. You know, we saw Keo pick off 1 to 2 units and then loses 4 horse archers in return. Make it 5.
Horse archers are expensive, and we've actually seen this in a previous game as well, crossbows versus horse archers. The cost efficiency is on the side of the crossbows, but now finally a clash comes in. Numbers are looking a lot better here for Kaio and Meow, and they do have the healing as well from JD.
Look at the XP going in from JD and level 3 hits.
Oh no.
The whole entire time they're not focusing the horse archers. They fell into the bait of firing against JD. JD levels up and the knights are shredding still on the front line. The numbers are still too high. There's no spears left. JD finally falls, but look at the horse archer number behind this. It is still nice and healthy, and it feels like this was Blid and XLAV's timing.
I don't know about this though, because all the knights got cleaned up as well. This was just mutual annihilation here. Both players losing the majority of their forces. At the end of the day, there is still a bit of an eco lead for Blid and XLab. They have walls up as well, and as much as they lost a lot of troops, so did Meow. Most of his knights are gone.
But you can't forget, he still has JD level 3. That is going to be infinitely better than anything Blid can do right now in the feudal age, especially being English. You are so much more valuable when the longbow numbers are higher. When you have that mass of 30, 40 longbows, you're actually useful. A mass of 10, 12 isn't going to be feeling too great for yourselves now. And you can see the map control getting taken back over by Keo and Meow.
You're still looking at 11 Camel Lancers, though, a couple of Dervishes as well to heal here, but they need more mass. They're being outnumbered really badly. New wave of longbows do come in, though, and without a lot of knights in this army, the longbows will be a lot better against these horse archers.
You can see XLab also starting to reinforce the walls I talked about in the pregame. With that immobile army, you don't feel great moving forward until you have the walls of your whole entire base. And now Barry's out on the far side. Your initial golds are starting to run out, so you have to move out for secondary resources, and you have to feel safe doing so.
I love how Kaio and Meow are securing map control, though, and they are leveraging that map control they have with the pockets of deer, the boars being taken. One Camel Lancer, I think, made their way into the base of Kaio there, forcing a lot of idle time. Indeed, that one Camel Lancer just forced like a dozen villagers to flee. Nice little touch there by XLab. He actually stopped collecting stone at 300, though, so he didn't end up dropping that third town center you mentioned.
What I'm wondering now is what was the end-all relic count between Keo and XLab? We can see 3-5 in the bank for XLab. That makes you feel good. That is one of those where you can see 0 in gold for XLab, but he's able to still produce gold-heavy units, 7-8 Camel Lancers in Q still, with having no villagers on gold.
Ooh. I don't like this fight here for Blid. He needs to leverage the range advantage he has, just fire over the walls. He's also trying to get to Castle Age here, and when he does, these fights will be a lot more beneficial to them. I feel like, again, they just gotta keep building those walls like XLab is doing, and get Blid into Castle. It's going to be so huge if he can get to Castle with the King's Palace, for instance. Get that second town center rolling himself. He's got a good food economy. He's going to get an even bigger boost to that. And the veterancy combined with the network of castles will help a lot when it comes to holding off this future assault.
All of a sudden, 23 knights are back on the field. Fight being taken again, pro quitter. They want this fight. Horse archer number feeling healthy, and JD is in support here with the healing. Dervish is getting sniped on down early, and the horse archers are just so much support here, even though the whole entire cav unit's getting debuffed. Knight's still alive.
Camel Lancers are just insane.
On the way.
They are just insane here. They're debuffing all this cavalry out there. And let's not forget about the spearmen. They're very cost efficient, and they kept beating up all these knights out there. They weren't really focused down by the horse archers. Now, you're looking at a setup where numbers are looking better for Blid and XLab. They have both players in Castle Age. Sure, all 3 sacred sites now belong to Meow and Kaio, but Meow still needs to find his way up to Castle Age.
Yeah, debuffing that whole entire army mass feels so great. JD just didn't quite do enough, and King's Palace just now being dropped. It is on the way, so we will start to see some even extra eco lead coming in from Blid and XLab as well. Doesn't feel the need to go to White Tower because they have those walls. They have the farm transition. They've been defending rather well, so once more eco.
And rightfully so. They're up by a decent amount, and I feel like they can hold this off even without, you know, the help of a King's Palace, but getting that extra town center rolling once again means that they can just escalate that eco a lot quicker. Looks like a direct push will be made towards this hunt here from XLab, though. They want to take this fight before the veterancy comes in for those longbows, but that should be just a couple of seconds away at this point.
The crazy thing with all these fights is I feel like Keo has just been like, while he's taken some damage with the horse archers, the number has been able to still build on up, and his resources, he might be going Imperial Age soon.
Oh wow, that would be insane. His teammate is still in feudal, and Meow lost a lot of these knights, but you're right. Every time the knights died, the horse archers got pulled back, and they still have 3 sacred sites. Let's not forget about it. 8.5 minutes on the counter. It feels like a lot, but if Blid and XLab don't start securing map control soon, it becomes a victory condition for KO and Meow.
And this is where you're going to see the longbows become so much, less valuable here. They go over to one side of the wall. They start burning it. The longbows, the spears, they're going to try to come help. And then Pro Quitter, they should just turn back, run all the way to the other side. And then the longbows have to run slowly, though.
Yeah, exactly. Now they have veterancy, though, and they are firing over the forest here as well. But if you want to play this composition, I feel like you need some stone walls for Blid and Axlav. Palisades won't hold off this force anymore.
Horse Archer's going to keep kiting on away.
A really nice micro. You got to wait for the longbows to catch up. That's one of the problems here for this composition. This hit and run works really well with the Horse Archers, unless you stand and fight. Looks like Kaio just lost track of his forces for a second.
Yeah, looked away for a second, probably was re-macroed behind this, doing something different, and a really good fight for Xlav and Blid. They're starting to retake that map control, deny the sacred site. Knight's getting pulled back, and Meow is still stuck in feudal, which at least he has JD. At least that's the one positive for himself, but starts to feel worse and worse and worse.
Longbows are catching up once again, and they do a good job focusing down these Horse Archers on the flank. And these Horse Archers are expensive, let's not forget about that. Knights are still feudal age knights against now well-upgraded Camel Lancers from Castle.
And it looks like Keo is starting to transition into his own knights, realizes how much gold he has. Not only knights, he's going crossbows as well to help with the Camel Lancers. He's going a little bit of everything. Camel Lancer numbers starting to get thinned out on the front side, but has plenty of reinforcements coming. Still a great fight for Blid and Xlav. They're continuing to move forward. Keo is the only line of defense, it feels like.
These knights from Meow are just so obsolete now. He's still in feudal age, and now he's fighting Camel Lancers and Castle Age longbows even. They can pierce that armor now, and you can start seeing that slowly snowball the fight. These knights are just a non-factor at this point. If you're Blid and Xlav, you might consider regrouping here a little, though, because you're low on Camel Lancers. They gotta regroup here. They gotta be cautious not to lose all these longbows. But just look at that. One volley from the longbows kills one knight. These knights are just no longer valuable.
The Camel Lancer numbers feels like this. Is that level 4 JD now?
Yep.
Oh my. So all of a sudden, forget everything we're saying. Meow is more valuable yet again. There's the elite champions that just came out, and they do not have a great answer for those. Numbers being thin. Keo's reinforcement mass, it's not just Horse Archers, it's crossbows, and it's Knights himself as well. So he has a big mass, a big swap on the unit composition, and now all of a sudden Blid and Xlav are having to fall back.
Yeah, if you're Blid, you might consider going crossbows here. It would be a good backbone unit, a good general purpose unit against everything that the opponents have. And you do have JD here, but the numbers are slowly disappearing here for Keo and Meow. You got to be very careful here not to lose JD.
Yeah, JD wants to be the tank, though, in the sense, has a lot of health, especially from the longbows. Crucial for Blid. Just got an outpost up. Those longbows now get the attack speed bonus, has that network of castles bonus on the front side. More reinforcements, though, coming into JD on the villagers.
She's gone.
JD falls. Keo and Meow are falling as well. Units need to fall back here. Meow is still in feudal age. Looks like he's about to go castle.
He's gonna have no standing army, though, and when you look at the eco, that's where it gets scary. Sure enough, you still have a level 4 JD, but you're down by 30 or so army, and you're down by 40 eco. A completely established food eco here for Blid. Really good farming eco for Xlav as well. They are set up for late game. They have a good composition as well. And by the time Meow gets to Castle Age, you're going to get so many more of these Camel Lancers out there. Crossbows are also being mixed in now by Blid. And they're slowly creeping up with those towers. They still need to re-evolve these, though. These walls are just so late.
Yeah, and Xlav also dropped a third TC behind it. The third TC did end up coming out, so that's where there's even more of this. It's basically 5 TCs versus 3. Numbers are slowly building up, and there's no walls for Keo and Meow, so we're seeing those just 1-2 Camel Lancers split off. It takes a while to get cleared up by just a few units, even if they are knights.
And when you look at the food eco for Meow, it's concerning. He's still 1 TC, 66 eco. it's not a good economy to just mass spam knights with only 22 villagers on food. And this is the problem. Keo needs to start slinging his teammate here, sending resources over. That's not something that Blid and Axlab need. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see Blid either dropping a lot more production. He's going to have a good economy and he's not making very expensive units. And once he's 200 out of 200, he could start sending resources over to Axlab just to make sure that these Camel Lancers keep coming.
Yeah, and you can see Blid's queue. This is when the non-stop onslaught of English comes. They're fully just online. Farm transitions been fully done and should have about 12 to 15 production buildings and just be able to queue 10 units at a time and have them constantly pushing out.
Yeah, the walls still need to be finished here for Blid and Axlab, and again, I feel like they would benefit so much from a couple of stone walls on the flanks, just to make sure that this extra mobility from Keo and Meow isn't going to be able to punish them. Though, as I'm saying that mobility is kind of gone. You're looking at just a handful of cavalry units for Meow and Kaio. I feel like now they're in a tough spot because we're looking at a slow-moving army versus slow-moving army, but when it comes to those fights, English will be more than happy to take those.
Yeah, especially if they have that network of castles bonus, which Blid has been doing a great job of slowly expanding that. You can see they just lost that, though, needs to drop another forward tower, taking the fight, and fine with taking this fight as they have the numbers here. Camel Lancers diving on in, crossbows doing the best they can, and Knights circling. JD, though, is still here, drops the elite champions again. They can be the differentiator as there's not a ton of crossbows. Blid does have 21 crossbows on the other side. But Keo and Meow, they're losing the fight heavily still.
It's also sustainability here. Blid and Axlab are happy just playing this slugfest, slowly grinding down the enemy army, because they know that every knight that falls from Meow is just so difficult to replace, and they're willing to take this fight even without a network of Citadel's bonus right here. And now with all these knights gone from Meow, the longbows can slowly focus the crossbows down here. 70 army against 40, and these numbers aren't really changing.
Even better, I love the horseman swap coming in from Xlab. He's going into horseman. He has 78 on food. He can easily support this, and it counters that crossbow mass that Keo's been trying to transition and change on into. The knights aren't a problem at all. He's going to be able to have Blid to take down the knights with the crossbows over there. So let the horsemen just run rampant. Split them off into the eco, cause tons of idle time. Just start playing that trash game with your 150 economy that you have.
I wonder if it's to counter the crossbows or simply because he's out of gold. Remember, this is a slugfest and Camel Lancers aren't cheap, and Axlab has a lot of relics, but he only has 10 on gold. Blid has absolutely no villagers on gold, so I wonder if this is him just running out of gold simply.
He is at least resecuring it, whether it's him out of gold or him not. The horseman play still works out perfectly if he just starts just spamming them like he has. They have so much eco to support this all, and the other side just can't really hold. You're seeing pings happen across the map, pings happening in the economy as well, and it's just where Team Pro Quitter is struggling. We might have a tied up series here in just a little bit.
I wonder if Keo is thinking Imperial here. He's got a lot of wood in the bank, a lot of food, gold. I don't know if Imperial will save them right here. They're down by 60 eco. They're down by some army as well. But he might be thinking about Imperial. Meow is nowhere close to being able to go there. But he might just be able to get some more knights out and see what Keo can do in Imperial. And let's not forget, Streltsy is no joke. In fact, in general, Rus Imperial is no joke.
You're not wrong there. The guild hall also slowly builds up a ton of res in the bank. So, as Meow slowly chills, as the fights continue to extend, Meow will all of a sudden be able to click the guild hall and go up to Imperial Age as well, depending on what resource it's on.
I wonder what that guild hall looks like. If he hasn't pulled off the resources, it should be really good now. Well, it's a royal
He started Guildhall and then transitioned it and changed it. Did he even have an upgrade in the Royal Institute yet?
Well, by now he should have rolled bloodlines. He doesn't have canceled settles though, and that feels like an oversight. It's such a cheap technology, and it's a good buff to your knights.
Blid and Xlab starting to take control of those 8k gold veins in the middle. They're starting to send those horseman raids like I was wanting. And now with all the 8K secured, you can see their food that they have in the bank. We should see Imperial Age coming out from both of the Meow Police here in just a little bit.
I feel like we're seeing the reversal of game number 1 here. In the previous game, we had that high mobility army from Blid and XLav struggling to break these static defenses, this slow-moving crossbow clump from KO and Meow. Now we're looking at the direct opposite. You have all these knights out here, but you cannot really get through these walls. And you have this death ball of the English coming up. Crossbows, spears, longbows. Blid is about to go into Imperial. XLav has a lot more resources than he needs for Imperial. He's going to click up and he's going to continue spamming units. It's going to be double imp versus just one Imperial Age player, that is KO.
Yeah, and this is really where JD had to do something to support the eco throughout the game, whether it's second TC or more importantly, what you'll see French and their French alternatives do a lot is drop a market behind this. Start trading, whether it's with the neutral or get your teammate to drop a market in the corner, because usually they have that map control, but no eco at all, really. Just regular 1 TC for Meow. He's at 80 villagers, and it's kind of just a more of an all-in play when you're playing like this.
A big push on that gold mine coming up to the north. These golds become crucial for the players here. Kyo and Meow doesn't have a lot of gold to work with, and finally some stone walls are coming in. Villagers can just run on top of the walls to prevent them from being killed by the knights.
They can jump up those walls, but instead it looks like they're trying to finish those walls or just run away. Keep being focused down. Camel Lancers coming to help, though, and it shouldn't just be Camel Lancers coming to help. I think he's pulling more of the army. He just doesn't have the numbers there. Blid is the one with the bigger army mass, but it's the immobile army mass.
More Camel Lancers are coming in, but they're not fully upgraded to Imperial just yet, I do believe. Still,
and those are Desert Raiders as well.
Let's not forget, these knights are expensive for Meow, and he is the player with the weakest economy here. How long can he sustain these fights? I feel like they're feeling that there's a timing here. Both players from Blid and XLab went to Imperial. They spent a lot of resources on this. If Kyo and Meow cannot punish them right now, it might just be too late.
Yeah, and that's where Kyo may make it. They have the army numbers now, somehow out of nowhere. The Knights, the Horseman number here is very, very high, and even though it's the counter unit, even though it's Camel Lancers and Desert Raiders, he's just, XLab's taken the fight with not enough numbers over and over again.
Yeah, he feels like he really needs to defend this gold mine right here, and he's trickling in units instead of kind of waiting for them to arrive. Slowly but surely, a lot of these knights get heavily damaged. Looks like Blid is not really coming over to help, though. I get the feeling that XLav might just be happy with this. It sounds awkward just looking at these fights, but if he was very desperate, they would just pull the army of Blid as well.
Blid has some stuff himself to deal with, it looked like, as Kyo is Imperial Age. Was trying to push himself. Looks like there's some siege over on that side, and you always have to respect when there's some siege.
Meow just got 3,500 food from Kyo. He doesn't have the gold to go into Imperial with, but Kyo's eco is now booming. And if he's pop-capped, he's going to slink his teammate to Imperial. That eco differential is getting smaller and smaller. Now players stop making villagers except for Meow, so Kyo and Meow are slowly catching up.
Yeah, and now it's about the military out on the field, the map control, who controls the middle resources, and that's where Meow knew this. He was going so hard for that middle gold, and finally has to pull back, and he was dropping some very, very forward farms here. I'm not sure about that, as it looks like they're in range of some sort of bombard tower or keep.
I don't really know about this. And he doesn't have a lot of villagers. Like, he is not a player that can afford to lose a dozen villagers out there. At the same time, though, it looks like Blid is still waiting for the upgrades before he wants to fight this. XLav was able to hold off the cavalry push, though, and let's not forget, Meow was constantly fighting knights into camels. That is not really sustainable. The army count is starting to favor Blid and XLav once again, and Meow is struggling for gold. He has the food to go into Imperial, but he just doesn't have the gold anymore.
Yeah, Meow has been struggling for a while. Meanwhile, Kyo has been making progress on the other side, been making that push, dropping a keep. This might be a little bit too far of a push, a little bit too aggressive. Blid's got 70 units there with... I mean, that's that English defense. I was about to say with network of castles, but they are not glowing. Keep should have to be canceled.
Yeah, this is not a good fight here for Keo. At the same time, now it's essentially two separate 1v1s. A camo player against a full knight player and a longbow player against a crossbow player. Both of those 1v1 matchups favor Blit and Xlav here. They're more than happy just splitting the map at this point and playing two separate 1v1s.
Yeah, the only thing is that could potentially, if Pro Quitter gets some walls down, some stone walls, some keeps down, it could allow this more just extended game, allow the opportunity for Meow to actually come back, as he is still hurting, he's still struggling, can't get up to Imperial Age, can't really get back onto that gold for the most part.
Xlav is now moving towards that back line here where Keo's farms are at, and if they can start hitting that's gonna be game over for Keo and Meow. Meow is down to 76 eco. They really need Keo to have that strong Rus economy, but I don't think that's going to survive for long. Look at this, all these farms are now empty.
Yeah, and Xlav is making the push forward. He's splitting off those Camel Lancers, splitting off those Desert Raiders all over the economy. He moved forward with like 40 villagers to take that forward gold. He wants to make sure that Keo and Meow have no access to gold. It was looking scary for a second. It looked like Team Pro Quitter was about to turn it back upside down, but Meow Please, they held, and they are the aggressors yet again.
And it again comes down to the fact that Blit and Xlav had these walls up and their ecos were virtually untouchable. There were some weird fights that they took. Some might have been a little overzealous where they got caught off guard. But at the end of the day, they just slowly ground down these armies, constantly taking cost-effective engagements. And same goes right here. This is not a fight that you would normally want to take, but they're just grinding their opponents down, idling all these farmers out, slowly getting those knights taken out. And because you don't have that gold income anymore for Meow, they have so little gold left to mine and left to work with. Every single knight that falls hurts so bad.
Yeah, you mentioned not much gold left. Look at right below where we're looking now. There's a gold mine with, it looks like 80 villagers around it. 55 villagers on this gold vein. Even if they, you know, continue this on, it's going to disappear so quickly. You can see villagers pulled back from Keo. He needs to talk to his teammate, needs to say, Meow, pull back your villagers as well. But maybe he knows that if he doesn't get that gold, it is game over. Red Palace being rushed down. Meow is down to 53 villagers. This is all over here.
Meow is down to 50 vills. He's going to lose so many building a Red Palace. He's going to be imp and done, basically. Remember, it's 41 vills now. He's losing all the villagers on that gold mine as well. This has to be it. It's double 32. The eco now.
Man, at what cost? At what cost is this? There's no support that Keo can give right now that's enough to bring his teammate back into this game. He's on 40 total population, and other side are both full maxed. Plenty of Q behind it that they can build up. Keeps are going to start being denied. More and more Camel Lancers coming in. This is looking like a tied up series.
If you're Xlav, now you need to pivot into Keo's eco. Because frankly, there's nothing left in Meow's base to destroy. But at the same time, oh yeah, there we go. A bunch of food, bunch of wood being sent over. Meow doesn't have any stone to work with though, so he cannot just drop a bunch of DCs to try and catch up. Still though, these men-at-arms are slowing down this longbow push quite a bit. This is why I'm saying that Xlav kind of needs to pivot to this side, because Blit kind of stalled out.
Yeah, and Xlav's slowly been pushing up the middle further and further. You can see the keeps right behind this. You can see the gold. Well, the gold still shows on the mini-map, but it looks like there's about 100 left in it in the middle, and there's going to be no gold left. Xlav's circling back around the Red Palace with another mass, and he's just going to have two different raiding parties. This might be it after these couple raiding parties.
Yeah, Meow just got a bunch of stone to drop new DCs with. He just dropped 2 to the north, but I'm not even sure if he's going to get those up, or even if he does, these Camel Lancers might just torch them down immediately. At the same time, a big counterattack happening on the right side. Keo is not done just yet. He's trying to break through the walls, get to that would-be trade that Blit and Xlav are trying to set up. This keep should slow them down quite a bit, though. Keo just doesn't have the siege to follow up with. Although, as I'm saying that, he has 3 rams somewhere. Keo is playing out of his mind here, trying to salvage what seems like a lost game.
He played a game 1v2, like I said, and maybe he'll be playing a game 1v2 again here for a while, holding themselves in it. Has plenty of army, more army than the other side combined. Meow surrenders, though. They decide to call it, right? Okay.
Oh boy, a hard-fought victory here for Meow Police, but they get on the board as well. It's one apiece now, and we had an absolutely crazy game over here. Plit and Xlav just playing this attrition game, really. I feel like it came down to the fact that they got those walls up and they had that robust eco going. They had 5 Elix for the IUBIT player. They had a fully walled English player with a well-set-up farming eco. And I feel like this is the direction that most team games have to head if you want to win. You want to have that safe economy that just eventually wins you the game. Meow, and Kaio were non-stop taking fights, but they were never able to hit that eco. Just look at that military graph. Goes to show that there was basically no downtime in this game.
Yeah, I feel like a couple of the fights were taken a little bit early. We talked about it before the team comp. We were like, the game. We were like, there's some times where you can choose what fights to take, and we didn't expect Team Pro Quitter to take some of those fights that we thought were going to be losing engagements, and it ended up being a back and forth consistently. But overall, Meow Police able to take the game, able to tie up the series 1-1, and I'm excited to see now that we see a couple less civs in the civ pool for each of these teams. What are going to be the next matchups? What's going to be the next map as well?
This is getting into a very intriguing series here, and I wonder how the tactical approach for either of these teams will change. You see, this is how we started out here. Those relics being snagged, those were huge. And this timing was great by Meow, by the way. He knew fully well that the Dervish play was intended to just secure the majority of the relics. And there was an ugly cleanup here early game, which looked really grim for Blit and Xlav. But then they were able to rebound with the Camel Lancers. And from their point, or for that point onwards, it was just difficult for me, Keo and Meow to take these direct fights into this longbow clump. I wonder how this will change the tactical approach of Keo and Meow in the next game. Are they going to try and replicate what they've done in game number 1, play a little bit slower with walls? Or are we going to stick with this more mobile composition that they tried in this game?
Yeah, and that's one where it felt like after that first fight, it was so bad for Blit and Xlab, but able to hold it, able to just still play their game, rely on that Castle Age Camel Lancer play, the Relic play, able to secure, I think we said 5, and then even with the Sacred Sites on the other side, they just slowly built up their masses and then took the engagements where they needed to, held really, really well. We're going to see again here where it's just, there's so many Camel Lancers into the double cav approach from the other side, and so that debuff is just being so useful here. Longbow sitting behind the wall as well, being able to just easily snipe down all of the horse archers.
It is a very long and tiresome game for both parties, by the way, and it's going to be interesting getting back to that early game state, because one thing I think that was a major takeaway from this game is that the two teams are on par in late game. If it's an equal footing, either of these teams can secure late game. It was the early game that looked a lot better in both of these games for Kaio and Meow, especially game number 1. But even in game number 2, if you think about it, those early game engagements where they caught these armies off guard, those were grim for Blit and Xlav. So I feel like for Meow Police, the direction needs to be dragging these games out, slowing things down a lot, and turning these games into more of a macro engagement rather than a micro engagement.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just kind of seeing, it's funny, all of these fights we've been seeing, it feels like it was almost the same composition over and over and over again, just kind of headbutting yourself into the wall. It's just like, if it didn't work efficiently the first time, maybe it'll work again. It didn't work the second time, maybe it'll work the third. And then it wasn't working. They needed to try something different, but kept trying the same fights, or at least, I guess, forced to take the same fights.
Well, we do have the draft ready for game number 3 here. We're going to Scandinavia. This is going to be my first time seeing Scandi in this event, and I gotta say, I'm very excited about it. I was missing it from the first day I was casting, but now we're going to have a fundamentally different map from Dry Arabia. In fact, a fundamentally different map from either of the previous maps. Kerlogar was also a lot more land focused. You had a couple of fishing boats, but they weren't really a major factor, so to say. So I feel like it's going to be a complete change up, and I understand why Kyo and Meow went with this. If you want to force a micro engagement, then water maps or hybrid maps are definitely your go-to.
Yeah, and you talked about it already. It's fundamentally different than every map because you have deep water fish. Whenever there's deep sea fish on the map, you have to go fishing. If not, it's basically an auto loss. Not to mention, this is a map where you'll sometimes see players, if they secure the water, go into some long distance water trade on the side, although that's a little bit easier to deny.
We are ready to go for game number 3 here. It's one apiece right now between Pro Quitter and Meow Police. Once again, elimination match, a lot on the line for these two teams here. We had the Scandinavia to take a look at the Ayyubids and HRE versus the Order of the Dragon, and on the supplementary side, I guess, Bled with the Chinese.
Yeah, and this is one where these early builds, it's all about who's going to secure the water and what type of build are you going to go to. I'm assuming Meow is going to go with that faster feudal build, although it looks like he might already be building a mining camp on the gold, which is weird for me. Usually you'll just send 3 villagers out there, do a long distance drop off, and then just go straight to feudal really, really quick, go drop a dock, contest your opponent's water that he invested into. But we'll see how that continues to go for the Ayyubid side here in a second.
Now, one thing I want to highlight here with this map in particular, Scandinavia, you have a lot of water on each side, but the deep fish is not equally distributed. In fact, if you take a look, most of that is situated towards the middle. So when it comes to committing to fishing, it's not a simple equation like on many maps where you just drop your dock and you're guaranteed fish. You actually have to venture out mid-map to make it effective. And the travel distance between your dock and the deep fish is also pretty big. So it's not like many of those classic water maps or hybrid maps where you get a massive influx of resources early on from fishing. It's a lot more progressive, and you have to fight a lot more to make sure that you can retain that fishing eco.
Wait, I'm so confused. Can we hover over what Blid just decided to do? He has 286 wood in the bank. He sent a villager out, and it ran back.
He's out of... What
he
happened
decided
there?
not. I think he decided not to go water. Maybe he's going to go reinforce his teammate side with a dock on his teammate side, but he's just floating wood now. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a great catch. I didn't even notice it. When you look at the players on the opposing side, Kyo does have a dock on the northern strait, and Xlav went for the dock down south. So the HRE and the HRE variant both went for a dock. No dock out here for Meow, so I really wonder if this was a scouting intel type of a thing where they realize that one of the 2 players from the opponents will not go for a dock, and this is just a response play from Blid.
I still feel like that's a weird choice. He had the res to do it. He's Chinese. They already have some extra bonuses on water. They're known as one of the stronger water civs. Who knows? But where I'm most surprised is to see where Meow is actually going with this feudal age. I'm not sure which wing he actually clicked up with. I think we started to see the outline of the House of Wisdom, but couldn't. And it's the Dervish reinforcement wing, so no quick age up, no, or not the Dervish, sorry, the reinforcement wings, no quick age up. He's gonna go with, you know, that slow desert raider that gets that slowly builds up now as there's a delay, and it's free though, so maybe just going with that OG Ayyubid's faster castle.
Yeah, again, I feel like one thing to highlight in these hybrid maps is that if you don't go for a dock, you're going to have a quicker feudal age. So again, if Meow is not going for a dock, that's going to expedite his feudal. And if that's basically the basis of decision for Blid, I understand why he did it. He's realizing like, oh shoot, if I go for a dock here, I'm going to delay my feudal age and I could get harassed. Remember, if you're Blid and Xlav, oh, Boar being aggroed here, trying to deny the Barbican, this could be catastrophic for Blid.
Oh no, he's not reacting either. Oh, this is no. One vil down, Barbican
now the landmark canceled.
And look at the eco difference on the numbers at the top already. This is what happens. We saw how quick Keo dropped that dock. He's been producing. It looks like Xlav on the other side only has maybe 2-3 fishing boats. Meow did drop that counter dock and is ready to immediately deny the fishing. And it is only 2 fishing boats. So the eco on the other side for Meow Police is just not there behind it compared to Keo and Meow.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. That fast feudal age from Meow getting that dock going early on to harass means that they will have that dominance down south. And at the same time, they are already out-muscling their opponents in terms of fishing eco to the north. That Barbican is still halfway complete, courtesy of that one boar out there. And we talked about this in a pregame. If you are Meow Police, you don't want an early micro battle. That has been 0 out of 2 basically in the previous 2 games. And if you're Keo and Meow, you want to win this game quickly. You want to cause a lot of damage early on, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Yep, Chapel on the way up as well. So even with that quote-unquote fast feudal age for Chinese, the Chapel is going to be a few seconds behind it and going to have 9 extra economic units. While, yes, there was that villager loss, that still shouldn't be 9 different units, and that's what the fishing holds. That shows you how much extra oomph this feudal age is going to have behind it for the HRE.
And this is just gigantic if you think about it. Minute 5 and you're up by 12 economy. To put that into context, Blid and Xlav have 19, 20 villagers each. It's almost like you have a 3rd player on the team of Keo and Meow. That's the level of eco advantage you have.
Yeah, and it looks like Xlav's going for a little proxy play in the middle. And the crazy thing is here, it also looks like Blid's going to try to counteract some water, but Keo's got double dock already up, and he should be able to just jump inside with the fishing boats, wait for, and there it is. 1 military ship is all he needs, maybe a second one to come out, and the fishing boats can come out and heal up, and there it is. So is able to secure up water, and now Team Pro Quitter has both sides of water secured for themselves.
And a big problem for Blid and Xlav is that even though you get those Order of the Dragon men-at-arms going for a land push, even if half of the land eco for your opponents are idled, it doesn't matter because they have all that food eco from the water. There is a portion of the enemy economy that you simply cannot contest.
And they at least have a somewhat decent answer to men-at-arms as well. The Desert Raiders, while they might not be the best unit, they still have a decent amount of base damage and can start doing enough in numbers to deal with the men-at-arms. Speaking of that men-at-arms, it is knocking on the doorstep. Gold villager pulled on back. Few villagers just being idled there. And men-at-arms just going to say, I'm happy to tank this, happy to cause some idle time. I don't think he's going to get a villager kill, though.
I've never been a fan of feudal age men-at-arms with the Order of the Dragon, because sure enough, you're tanky. But at the end of the day, how many villagers have you killed? Nothing. They're just too slow, and they are expensive units. You can't just fight underneath a town center. And the concern here is that if this was an open land map, this would be a lot of damage. But we're looking at a hybrid map where the opponent has a bunch of fishing boats. So frankly, Meow can afford all this idle time, and he's still going to be all right.
Yeah, and he's stalling up the other couple men-at-arms. He's built that Desert Raider number up to 3 already, and look at the men-at-arms. They're just slowly getting picked apart as that Desert Raider number continues to climb. The men-at-arms are all of a sudden not going to feel like men-at-arms anymore.
Yeah, this is just concerning all over for Blid and Xlav. I feel like if they want to have any shot at this game, they just got to go like crazy on the land-based economy. But it just feels, frankly, it feels too late. It's simply because they conceded that water way too quickly and everything kind of fell apart. Delayed feudal ages, and now a heavy investment into men-at-arms that do negligible damage to the enemy eco. I mean, if you're up to like 6-7 men-at-arms, maybe you can make something happen. Let's not talk about this.
It's Chooks as well behind this coming in for Chinese. So we're starting to see that number mass up already at 9. It's the Archer play for Keo, which didn't seem bad, like the worst against the men-at-arms, because you're like, oh, they can outrun them. But all of a sudden, if you're taking the fights, that is not a winning fight. But the Horsemen from Meow are already ready, already there to counter out those Chinese units. The Chooks getting focused on down. Desert Raider number climbing up as well. And so the men-at-arms are, again, becoming more and more negligible. Those reinforcing units can't run across the map anymore.
Yeah, Chukanu numbers are building up nicely, though, and if you get a decent Chukanu mass, it could still be terrifying. I feel like if you're Blid and XLab, there is only one condition under which you can turn this game around. It's causing chaos. Remember, you do have an or Order of the Dragon player, so that gives you a decent eco boost. If you can start idling out a lot of land-based villagers and then maybe start ramming down those enemy docks, that could make things interesting. Because it's one thing that the opponent has a bunch of fishing boats, but if you destroy the dock, it's not going to matter.
Well, we see one of the proxy barracks get taken down by that original ram. It started to take down the other, but the ram gets killed by Chukanu from Chinese. Yes, a ranged mass taking down rams. Nothing to see over there. And slowly but surely, Keo has been building the archer numbers, kiting around, doing as much damage as possible he can to these men-at-arms, but it feels like it's really nothing.
Yeah, the problem is that it's a trickle from Blid and XLab, and frankly, they're catching up on the eco count. It's only a 10 deficit now. It's getting progressively smaller and smaller, but at the same time, you're just conceding so many resources with these small groups of Jugenu being cleaned up. But the men-at-arms, they're still causing a lot of damage, and slowly but surely, these villagers are losing HP. I don't know about this. I don't know what to say about this series in general. This is not a game that Keo and Meow should lose, but the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm starting to feel like, okay, this level of chaos might be too concerning to deal with. Look at all these villagers going down. If Blid and XLab find a way to hit the fishing eco, this could get very interesting.
Well, you speak of fishing eco. Look at the Meow's fishing eco. He hasn't really built any, so he doesn't have that fishing eco we're talking about. He's on 3 shoreline fish. He's not on the deep sea. This is what is going to be the key for Pro Quitter, though, is if that archer number can start to build up. Woodline was being denied, though, and Meow has spent all of his kind of focus on just slowing the trickle, killing some of this reinforcing mass, which also forces the men-at-arms back, allows their ecos to actually start working again here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fumble from Meow not to go for any fishing here. It's completely uncontested, and that would be a nice boost to his eco. But I think they're still fine here. They've been doing a really good job just intercepting small groups of units. 20 Jugenu is no joke, but a dozen or so archers plus the camel lancers, or camel archers, I should say, they will be able to hold this off. And I think Keo is thinking about Castle Age here. If he gets the Castle and gets Palace Guards, or even better, crossbows against all these men-at-arms, they'll be in a really good spot.
And the men-at-arms, while there's not many of them, they're doing their job perfectly. Just tank up and be a front line. Every time Keo turns to fire, the Chooks want to try to get a volley onto the archer mass. It's going to be way more effective compared to the volleys on those front line of men-at-arms.
I would love to see a tower here from Blid and XLab. They gotta go crazy here. If they can tower this wood line, that could be very concerning for Keo and Meow. Ecos are now dead even, by the way.
Ecos are indeed dead even. Song Dynasty, I think, working hard for the Chinese behind this. And the Desert Raiders, they don't want to fight against the Chooks. They want to just keep trying to kite down those men-at-arms. But again, still, every time they turn and fire, the Chooks get an extra volley in.
Blid and XLab are playing the same strategy that they did in the previous game, just a complete slugfest. This time around, though, they don't really have the numbers to sustain this. Having said that, they caught up on the eco. It's 83 versus 83. In fact, now they're actually ahead. So suddenly, this becomes a position where if you're Keo and Meow, you don't want to potentially get into a slugfest for an extended period of time. In fact, Keo is somehow losing eco somewhere. I wonder where it's
on his wood line. Somewhere on his wood line, I think, right above. There's a men-at-arms on the wood line he's not reacting to.
He didn't notice. That's what's happening. He didn't notice, and that could be the saving grace here for Blid and XLab.
Oh my god, and it's still happening. 4, 5, 6 villagers falling, and it's still happening. No reaction. They're winning the fight so heavily in the middle. They're probably all hyped up here until you look back at your wood line and you're like, why can't I produce archers anymore?
And now, if you lose all those lumberjacks, how will you protect your ships? It takes 1 or 2 combat ships from Blid and XLab to clean up all the food, or all the food eco of Kyo on the water. It's getting worse and worse for Kyo and XLab, or Kyo and Meow, I should say.
He just lost it all on the wood line. That men-at-arms, give him a medal, a god men-at-arms, but the front line, there are no more men-at-arms really. The Chooks, they're left out on their own. While there aren't any horsemen here for Meow Mike anymore, there's still enough archers, still enough Desert Raiders to take this fight efficiently.
Men-at-arms once again coming in to hit the lumberjacks here. This is not a cost-effective fight though for Keo and Meow Mike anymore. A lot of expensive Desert Raiders trading against all these Jugenu. That's just not a good setup.
Again, men-at-arms just slowly coming in, trying to be enough of a difference. A couple archers actually made by Blid. And no castle ages at all.
There's a big clump of units to the north on a hunt and a gold mine from Keo. Yeah, he's trying to tower this one for the time being. I was wondering if he's starting to kind of stretch out his villagers and potentially open up avenues for Blid and Axlav to raid.
Yeah. Looks like a couple more men-at-arms. They at least, at the very least, what that men-at-arms play did was put Pro Quitter on the back foot. We talked about it. Meow Mike hasn't been making fishing, hasn't been reinforcing, and that villagers get pulled. And I mean, that tower's going to do nothing now. Villagers spotted it out in time.
Good reaction.
It gets denied, and they fast build an outpost themselves now. But that is a ton of villagers out on the deer. They know, Keo and Meow Mike know now that the food resources are slowly running low. This push will slowly start running out of steam if they hit places like that. Delay the food, delay the economy, because there is no fishing on the other side. It is only that land economy.
Yeah, that's the big thing here. Keo and Meow Mike, they need that fishing, and they do have that fishing. But on the other hand, Keo is now running low on gold. He doesn't have a lot of food either. Sure, the fishing boats are great, but he lost a bunch of villagers on the wood, so he didn't really add a lot more fishing boats. And Axlav, I wonder if he's thinking castle here. It sounds crazy because he doesn't really have the gold. He's banking up a lot of food. They still need to find a way to hit that fishing eco. I think if Blid and Axlav can somehow find a way to harass the fishing eco, they could win this game easily.
And again, fight going down. Keo and Meow Mike just need to focus the Chooks with their whole entire army mass at first, and once those are dead, then focus the men-at-arms. Instead, though, Keo just kiting back with the men-at-arms on his side. Meow Mike having to do the same. Villagers on the gold will end up falling here, so a few more losses. Meow Mike finally making some fishing, though, so we'll have a little bit of extra eco again. And they're constantly trying to deny those deer that they spotted out earlier, so behind this, a little bit of extra eco denial as well.
The numbers, the army count is just building up a little quicker here for Keo and Meow Mike, though. Like, they haven't been losing a lot of units, whereas when you look at Blid and Axlav, they've been losing a lot of men-at-arms, a lot of Chukunu. Army counts are slowly looking better for Keo and Meow Mike. Though, let's not forget, that army graph at the top, or that army bar, is a little deceiving. Some of those units are actually on the water. Those are not factors right now. Love this little focus here. You know that you will lose these Jugenu, but you will just trade them to a bunch of villagers. And now a second wave of Jugenu come in as well.
I think now we're getting to the point, though, that Keo and Meow Mike are having enough of a mass to be happy to take this. 30 archers, 16 Desert Raiders, even some horsemen in reinforcements here. And so fight being taken, a ram being dropped by Axlav. They know this is an all-in play. This has been a super all-in play, and it was looking good for a second, but it feels like the steam is starting to slow down. It's running out. They're out in mid-map on the boar, onto the deer, and Desert Raiders are moving that way now.
That ram needs to focus that mid-map dock from Keo. If you take it out, he has no means of dropping off the food from the fishing boats.
Oh, and the horsemen are there. It wasn't Desert Raiders. Villagers surround. There's enough villagers here to pull out the shivs, do some damage, but just like the deer they saw earlier, now they know an easy spot to focus. Split off a mass of Desert Raiders, head that way now, take the fight on the front side, which Axlav and Blid, a little bit of miscommunication. The men-at-arms ran in as the Chooks ran out.
I feel like the problem for Blid and Axlav is that they're playing a similar style to the previous game, but here they don't have the eco lead to play that attrition game.
And there's the reinforcing mass we were talking about. They're going to continue to come after this spot. There's so many villagers there. There's also villagers up front onto a different deer pack. Tons of villagers now falling for Axlav, and Keo and Mayameka have the army numbers now and are taking back the map control after having that quick feudal play starting to diminish here.
Xlav's eco is still very unbalanced. He's floating 2,000 food, but he doesn't really have the gold for castle. He needs to make some changes here. I think he wants to go to castle now.
He's trying to go Swabia.
Oh, he's going, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, Burgrave is going to be the opening. Concern is that resource influx still. They don't have that fishing, and they never really managed to damage that fishing from Keo. And now Meow is also on fish. They made up for all that lost villager group by simply going for a fish. And it looks like Xlav actually wants to go Imperial indeed.
I was kind of saying that sarcastically, but it was one that he's just floating so many resources. I don't think he can go Imp. I think this play, he has to make units. He has to have a front line here because they know how many units are pushing the base. Blid's falling back. Chukmas is there, but again, there's just too many units here from Team Pro Quitter, and there's 2 men-at-arms from Xlav.
I just don't know what 10 extra men-at-arms will help here. I think at this point, if you're Blid and Xlav, you got to play a Hail Mary. And that might be just that imp recovery for the OOTD. Even if you get to Castle, well, you will get to Castle Age, but even if you get a couple of men-at-arms out, I don't think that's going to be the difference maker here. But if you can find your way to Imperial, it's a different story. He's queuing up a couple of men-at-arms, he's getting the veterancy for them. And now, it looks like Keo and Meow will pivot to the other side, though. They want to hit Xlav. Maybe they are sensing that he could try doing something like that. Maybe going to Imperial Age or just try to get some sort of a recovery going. It's going to be a couple of nights, though. I don't like that.
They saw this food spot earlier. They want to deny the OOTD's food while they don't, right after he hits castle. So he doesn't have a ton of Q, isn't able to get a ton of those Castle Age units out. Some more villagers on over there. Outposts all left. And the villagers, a few of them should go down, if not all of them. This mass that's closing in is a quite quick mass. Desert Raiders are happy. They see this and they will kill all of those. Those are OOTD villagers as well. That much more valuable. Chooks here though. And that chook number is very, very scary. 69 chooks.
Nice.
And just need to A-move those.
And let's not forget, these men-at-arms are now super tanky. Castle Age, OOTD men-at-arms. And one thing that Blid and Xlav were able to accomplish is buy some time for the Chukunu mass to build up. Castle Age is going to be in for Meow in just a second. He was aging up, and Keo is also going to Castle. So Blid will be the only player that's still stuck in Feudal. But now they're down by 21 eco, and until they find a way to hit that fishing, it's not going to be their game, I feel.
And it's going to get even worse. We saw just a quick swap from Vodka showing us the second TC Keo drop behind this as well. So we have even more eco emphasis coming in from Team Pro Quitter. They have the fishing and they have a secondary TC now. And we'll see where the relics start to go as Castle Age is out. Xlav was the first one there, but there were units already in the base. You can see the relics on their side still haven't been secured as it was a bird raid play for him, not Regnants.
97 Chukanu on the field now. I feel like if this army gets cleaned up, it's game over for Blid and Xlav. One way or the other, this game is going to end in a few minutes, I feel. That's a scary army, though. And remember, Castle Age upgrades aren't in just yet for Meow. He's getting Castle Age upgrades right now, making a pivot into the Horsemen. But at the same time, this is just half of the army. There is like a second big clump of Chukanu coming across the map as we speak. Yeah, look at that.
This is really good though. Like, I love this by Meow. He's waiting until the upgrades come in. He's not taking the fight too early. He's also waiting for Keo to circle back. And you can see upgrades 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now he takes the fight, circles around. Upgrades come in for both units and the archers close. This is where Blid, you said not all the units were here. Well, he needs all the units here because this fight is going to go heavily into the favor of Pro Quitter with those Castle Age upgrades.
I was just about to say that. He needed every single Chukunu here. Chukunu scale exponentially. And this would have been a tough fight even with all the Chukunu, all the 100 of them out there. Now it's hopeless. This game is just going into the hands of Keo and Meow. It's not a matter of who, it's a matter of when at this point. And really, when you look at this game, you gotta talk about that fishing. It was way too easy for Keo and Meow to just have that untouchable economy on the water. never really was contested by Blid and Xlav. And I gotta credit Keo. He's got a ship patrolling that very northern edge of the map. He's making sure that Blid isn't even trying to sneak a dock up. It's just not possible right now for Blid to get on that water and contest that fishing eco.
Yeah, and I do feel like that big difference you mentioned. Wow, speaking of denying the fishing, we see Xlab finally doing it. But I do feel like right when Meow finally took deep sea fish, finally produced some more fishing, was when he was able to start making that difference. More horsemen coming out, more desert raiders coming out, and that number is really what diminished both armies on the other side. The archers, while it felt like they're great, and that number's up at 74. Early on, really what helped thinning the numbers was the desert raiders and was the horsemen hitting reinforcement.
And I just don't see these men-at-arms being any valuable at this point. They're way too slow for team games. You don't even have very many of them. Now Blid is trying to get to Castle Age here, try to get the veterancy upgrades for these Jugenu, but Keo will simply not allow this. By the time he's up to Castle Age, all the Jugenu will be gone.
Yeah, archers just continuing to move forward. Men-at-arms not being the front line, letting the Chooks be the front line. You could see the second relic that Xlav had for himself. He didn't even drop in the monastery as there were too many units here. Men-at-arms swapping, taking the fight against the Horsemen Desert Raiders. Archers still moving on forward into the eco. Blid goes Castle Age, but at the worst timing possible. Upgrades won't be able to come in. Attempted Wololo's coming in. No reaction. Oh my God!
Talk about the Hail Marys. Frankly, it might just be too late, but if there was ever any hope of a comeback, this might be it. He has really thrown a Hail Mary and it actually stuck, but is this enough? I don't think so.
It's still not going to be enough. Still losing too many villagers. Reinforcements come, and they should be able to clean up that Desert Raider mass because he has more, and he has horsemen to tank that front line. But that was close enough. He almost moved in with his whole entire army. If he had gotten the whole mass, it would have been enough to hold this.
Frankly, I feel like every single time we see a great moment from Blid and Xlav, it's followed up by some underwhelming engagements, partly because they don't have the economy to sustain this, and that's part of the reason things fell apart. Some of these fights, if they just avoided them, like, let's say, diving deep into the enemy base at half of the Jugenu, this game could have been so different.
Yeah, they had that timing that looked so good for a while, but as it continues on, the resources on the map, it forces the farm transition. It forces them to go further and further out, and that's where Keo and Meow were able to take advantage, splitting off horsemen, splitting off desert raiders, getting a little bit of return damage, and they had that fishing untouched over and over. Game gets called 2-1 over to Team Pro Quitters, but this is not a best of 3. It's a best of 5.
And I feel like just looking at these games, this could easily be a series that goes all the way to the distance. Blid and Xlav made it very tight here for Keo and Meow. This wasn't a clean sweep by any means, despite the fact that Keo and Meow had all that fishing eco going for them. There were definitely some dicey moments going on. And you know what's the cool thing about this here for Blid and Xlav? The remaining maps have absolutely no water. So from this point onwards, you're not going to have that fishing helping out Keo and Meow. I think we've also seen this setup from Blid and Xlav where they just like these slugfests. Move the army forward, just keep trickling in the army and fight until someone runs out of troops.
Yeah, we saw some proxy buildings in that game too. They knew they needed that timing to pay off quick, because if not, the fishing would pay off too much. You can see the economy count got crushed from Keo when he didn't see the men-at-arms on that wood line, which we might see the highlights here in a second. That really is what felt like was going to be the potential turnaround for Blid and Xlav, but wasn't enough. Keo and Meow gained enough steam and took it down. This is one of the favorite highlights. How can you not love a little boar pull? Gets a villager kill, cancels the Barbican too, which delays this feudal age play from Blid. Maybe, if that Barbican comes up 20 seconds quicker, the fishing doesn't boom up as much. He's not able to, immediately deny that one single dock. We can see some wolves taking down the ram. But this is really when everything came on the line. If you don't have this mass, if you aren't able to continue this production, reposition your villagers consistently, if you take too much damage here, Pro Quitter's just out of it, even with the fishing. But they constantly were remassing. You can see taking down the reinforcing chooks. Men-at-Arms need to pull back here. They're causing a little idle time, but this is just such a good play by Pro Quitter with, focusing in on the back units here. And then, just constantly back on those wolves. The ram actually circled back after taking down the dock and ends up taking down, I think, one of the proxy barracks. So again, just slowing down that push is all that Pro Quitter needed to do with the deep sea fish here as well.
I think these were the fights that were a little dicey for Blit and Axlav. All this compilation shows is how every single fight that Keo and Meow took, they had this numerical advantage, and they kept cleaning up small groups of Chugenu, never really allowing Blit to build that mess until it was too late.
Yeah, and that was really the key over and over again. It felt like throughout this game. It was, Blit and Xlev, they had to take these fights, some of them at least. They had to cause this timing, this denial, because if they wait a minute and then all of a sudden there's 10, 15 more fishing boats that Meow and Keo actually get to focus into, it's too late. And so this is where it was close. And I think, again, the Men-at-Arms in the Woodline was really what was almost the difference here. Keo's numbers started to get diminished, and then he was struggling to build it up. But that's where, right when he got hurt, Meow focused more onto the fishing.
If you're Meow and Keo right now, you're feeling happy. You're up 2-1, but you also need to take a couple of lessons from these games, because this is not the first time that they kept losing a bunch of villagers to just no reaction, basically. There was one instance in the first game tonight, now this one. And here, they had the fishing eco to bail them out. But one way to look at this is that when one team has all the fish and the other one has none, you're always supposed to play from an eco advantage position. And right now, in this snip, we can actually see a 10 eco lead for Blit and Xlav. There were moments in this game where the team without any fish was actually leading in eco.
Yeah, and that should never really happen, especially with Order of the Dragon on your side. And that's where some of those rates, some of that not paying attention proved to be that difference earlier on. But then all of a sudden, you can see the other end. There's 20, 30, 40 vills in this mid-map. And that's just such an easy spot to consistently idle. Throwing that one horseman, yeah, it's a horseman that you lose, but it definitely pays off. A few more villagers getting picked, and this is really when the game felt like it turned back upside down. It's back on Pro Quitter's side, and finally the game-ending fight here. You can see Keo and Meow collapse together at the same timing. Upgrades come through at the perfect time, and purple and pink, there's barely going to be any units on the ground at the end of this fight because of how much of a mass and how tiered up they were in comparison.
I feel like this was probably the final nail in the coffin, this little shot where if you have 100 Jugenu, you could have made this a little scarier. But having only 50 when you're actually facing off against more troops than what you have out there, and you're still in Feudal Age versus Castle Age troops, that's just not enough. And again, nice timing here by Keo and Meow in the final stages of this game, diving before the Castle Age upgrades come in for the Jugenu. Really, Axlav's Hail Mary Vololo dragged this out a little more, but I wonder if Meow just didn't care because they knew they were going to win.
No, I don't think you never not care on a Wololo. I think he was like, there were two Wololos, so I think he maybe was like, oh, I have enough timing to push up with the Desert Raiders, snipe out this prelate real quick. And in reality, he pushed up with a few of them. About half of them got the shot off, and about half of them got Wololoed.
Very possible. In that case, though, one thing I want to say, though, despite the fact that Pro Quitters are leading right now 2-1 and they are in a match point, they gotta be real cautious about these little slip-ups, because we've seen multiple slip-ups like that in the previous games. A dozen villagers being lost to a single unit, half of your army getting converted. You cannot really sustain that. You cannot really make those mistakes continuously, because Meow Police is more than capable of exploiting those weaknesses. Let's see if they can turn this series around. Now it's match point for Pro Quitters. We're heading to Cliffside here in game number 4.
Will Meow please be able to tie the series? They are starting out on this west side of Cliffside. Xlav playing the Byzantines as the color yellow. Blid playing JD as the color green. On the other side, we got Pro Quitters. We got Meow playing English, color purple, and Keo Pink playing as the Abbasid. And this is really one that it feels like Keo and Meow just have to kind of hold out this timing push and potential timing. If they get to late, they're playing two boomy civs, eco civs. They like to get to late game, whereas it feels like JD and Byzantines are more of this kind of timing based civ. Biz can play the late game too, but I feel like they're way more kind of gonna try this timing push again.
Now, one thing to look at is that the two games that Keo and Meow won were the ones where you had a slightly more off-meta map, so to say. Kerlogar in Scandinavia also had some water, although Kerlogar's water wasn't that big of a factor. But the open land map that we played, Dry Arabia, that was Blid and Xlav. And from this point onwards, we just have these land-based maps out there. And I think, again, just going back to that point about losing a bunch of villagers to a single unit, those things get amplified on maps like this because you don't have that fishing eco to compensate.
Yeah, and the key thing on this map is where it starts to unravel in that mid game. All your golds are mainly forward. And actually looking at it, the only person who has a back gold is Xlav and Blid both have back golds. Whereas Keo and Micah all have forward golds. All their secondary golds are all forward. So that is really what they can punish throughout this game if they are able to take this, whether it's feudal age pressure, whether it's, the OG cataphract play from Byzantines, or a combination of both.
I feel like one thing I like about this map here for Blid and Xlav is that this plays more into that macro style play that they want to play. In these little micro engagements, small groups of army, Keo and Meow continuously win those battles. But this map is really well set up for that late game slugfest that we so often see Blid and Xlav prioritized. If they can get some wars going on the flanks, if they can take this to late game, I think their chances will get a lot better.
You say that, but I feel like the civs on the other side will be much more in tune if we're getting a late game. You're going to see an ABBA, probably 2 TC, maybe 3. You're going to see an English, maybe even going 2 TC themselves, but at the very least going with the Abbey Kings play, getting a little bit of early pressure on out. And this makes it sometimes a little bit difficult for JD to get up and going because you have that king that heals on up, and it makes that first night potentially get on the back foot. You also don't want to dive English or ABBA all the time.
Fair point. Very fair point. And one thing I like about the English here is that in a map that has so many choke points and it could just be direct battles all over, English will reign supreme. Looks like it's going to be a standard second TC play from the Abbasids here. And it's the Abbey of Kings. For Meow he's going to have that king roaming the map, getting some harassment going. And he's got a really good haul of sheep as well. It's not like the English need it very badly. They will eventually play farms, but it's always going to have that fallback option.
Yeah, the question for Keo is it going to be 2 TCs or is it going to be 3 TCs? Either way, it's kind of one that you just want to get up to castle without too much damage going in. And you have a lot of units that you can use this game that will be very, very effective for Keo. Even if playing feudal age, he can just go full camel archer mass and do exactly what we've seen him do in previous games, whether it's horse archers, whether it's knights, just roam around the map, split a couple different masses off, and that can do a lot of damage to a civilization like JD.
Yeah, on the other side, Knight is out there for Blid. I think one of the bigger wildcards is going to be Xlav. I wonder what his approach is going to be to this. I don't know if, playing classic mercenary longbows will work well here against the actual OG longbow civilization, the English.
Villagers pulled back after the king is on the way and arrived. So knew it was coming. Scout gives a little fair warning, and that is now full gold denial at this point in time. Blid not on the gold as JD, and ooh, the little military wing units deny some berry gathering, deny some of that oil gathering, but not able to secure a Vil kill Speaking of Vil kill, there's one that gets taken down.
Nice find right there. A lot of harassment going on here. Oop.
And one gets taken down on the other side. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but that Knight's going to be coming right back for that English gold. No reaction this time from Meow, a little bit slow. One more Vil goes down. The Knight's fine with taking up some short bow shots. Oh, the scout though, that's not as much.
Oh, the scout does get away, and it's at the same time the king is also getting some kills on that gold mine. A lot of early game harassment going on, and villagers are falling on both sides here.
This is absolutely hectic beginning, and usually you'd expect this from French on French, not English versus French. Another villager falls on that outpost. This king has taken 3 or 4 villagers down already, even if he loses his life, which he gets away. Blit is sitting at 19 villagers early game as JD.
Oh, that's just so sad. You love how he was able to hit that gold mine from the English player, but again, we're seeing this.
2 Vils go down,
time.
and JD gets XP.
And it's the delays in the reaction that hurts so much here. Villagers were pulled away, but they got like 1 or 2 kills before the villagers even started moving. And now you're looking at 21 versus 22 villagers when you compare Blit and XLab. Just utter chaos here in early game. Both players taking a big beating.
Yeah, Meow can go to castle soon, though. He got enough gold that he needed. He's got 600. He won't be able to get any upgrades, won't be able to get any Castle Age units out, but he can get there. And meanwhile, his teammate, he's 2 TC. So if we're talking about 1v1s on either side, Blit is still behind, even after all of that damage that he was able to cause. JD, though,
and it's a white.
Oh no, she's gonna do the AoE. Oh, a little bit of an early activation there, but still a lot of villagers canceled. White Tower has to drop it a little bit more conservatively. Knight's gonna charge again. Villagers need to just jump inside the TC.
I absolutely love this. The delay is so crucial. Every second matters here.
Oh, great body blocking. Another AoE spin, though, and another villager falls. Knights charging out from either side. While, yes, the Knights will go down.
You can't cancel the landmark now. The landmark took damage. If you cancel it, you might not have the resources to replace it.
Teammate is here for a reason, though. Archers come to help to try to snipe JD. Spears need to protect the archers from the Knight that is there. Another JD ability could be over, but JD steps too far, taken down by the English TC, and this should give Meow all the breathing room he needs.
A lot of the villagers are very badly beaten up here, but Knights fall here. 1 to the TC, 1 to the Spearman. Limit Honey now moving in here. They're really trying to stop this Castle Age from becoming a thing. They understand that Meow probably wants to go for Knights here. Question is how many casualties they can cause before this White Tower goes up.
They're coming back for, and oh no! XLab's here with longbows as well, and Keo does not have the full mass to deal with this. I think Meow just needs to, he canceled.
He doesn't have the gold. He's 5 gold short.
I think he could have gotten it up. I don't know. This could be the perfect timing for Blit and XLab. He has to cancel it. He doesn't have the gold. Is he going to just move out to the mid gold on the cliffside? Hope it doesn't get scouted and like drop the White Tower in the middle of nowhere?
Does it matter though?
Oh no! Oh no!
Does it matter? He lost so much trying to get this up. And
it's
this
28 to 28 Vils. He didn't lose as many as you think.
It was so crucial. It was so crucial that that landmark took a little damage from JD. Because this is why you cannot just replace it. You didn't get a full refund. You got a 99% refund. But that means that you're 5 gold short.
I think he didn't. I think he shouldn't have canceled it. But overall, the Vil damage, he's only down 1 Vil compared to Blit after all of this. He's not as far behind as what you would expect. He just needs to get the Castle Age through and finish. But a Ram is now on the way, which makes this all the more scarier. If that Ram starts taking and hits at the Castle Age landmark that's being built, it can get canceled that much quicker. Oh, I forgot it's a...
Oh, here we go. Here we go, the Hierosifon once again. There is no way you can cancel this now. You gotta commit if you're Meow. If you cancel, it's game over.
And the longbows are gonna step up, and every single time they step up, they should be able to try to get a volley down.
This might go down.
Knights are going to be the front line. There's a second Kara Siphon here as well. Archer Mass.
It's over. It's so over. And he didn't cancel. He lost the whole landmark.
It's all up to Keo now. Can Keo 2v1? Meow is down at nothing. Keo's had two TCs working for a while. He has a nice economy. He has a big Archer Mass, but is a big Archer Mass going to be enough?
If he cancels that landmark, it would have been very bad. He would have lost most of the resources. But not canceling means he lost everything. He's got no resources to do anything right now. He's going to have his second landmark contested here. And if Keo doesn't fight, his teammate is going to get eliminated.
Keo is the heart and soul, the rock of this team right now. He's all archers, and there's knights on the other side, which makes it so difficult. You have to have some sort of a front line here, or the knights just get to run rampant if there's multiple.
They're just gonna go for the landmarks here. 3 hero siphons, they don't want to fight this army. They just want to snipe the landmarks and make it a 2v1.
Sniping the landmarks doesn't take him out of the game. He'll still have villagers.
Wait, doesn't it?
That was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago that they changed that.
All right. Fine. Now, you don't want to lose these hero siphons to villagers here.
Villagers will take down both of these, and Keo pushes the mass back.
I don't like this.
They're fine. They're fine after all of this somehow. Keo needs to not step up too far, though. That's what I was worried for. The Knights. He can like 3 volley the Knights, but every time he turns, how many will he loot? Well, now he's not losing any. The longbows aren't fast enough.
I don't like committing
There's so many Knights falling.
I don't like committing to triple hero siphon now. Sure, you took out one of the landmarks, but even if you take out the DC, as you said, it doesn't eliminate the player, which means that this is a massive investment.
Keo's going castle. If he gets castle, they win. Plain and simple. They get the composite bows on these archers. They get the upgrades. The knights are gonna melt like butter. It's just gonna be nothing.
I wonder if these knights even have the range defense upgrade right now. They just die way too quickly, and again, you're absolutely right about this. Keo is going into Castle Age. This has to be a 1v2, and they played a very greedy game. A 2 TC Abbasids and a fast Castle English is super greedy against an aggro team like Meow Police. But if they can stall this out and they can get to Castle Age, 30 Abbasid archers is all they need.
They're bleeding units so hard. Keo is making a masterclass with this kiting. He's just been nonstop 1, 2, 3 units slowly falling. Another knight circles around in the backside. Looks like Meow might have taken a little bit more damage, but the archers, they're just making a perfect defense for themselves.
Still though, now we have archers mixed in for Xlav, and that is huge. If he can trade this army before they get the Castle Age upgrades, it's a very different story. One of the issues I feel like from Xlab was that he went longbows, but he didn't have archers. So the numbers were always in the favor of the Abbasid player. The other thing they could do is still run circles around Keo. Keo's got a slow army. If they can send those knights in and start sniping villagers, they can still get back into this game, because Xlab also wants to go into Castle Age, and he's got almost enough stone for a second DC as well.
Keo hears everything you're saying and says, I'm going to one-up you. I've already dropped double stables. He's ready for a Lancer swap, and he's going to be able to have enough eco to continue the archer play. Castle Age comes through. You just immediately see double Lancer in queue. You see the archer upgrade should be coming through, and ranged damage. Everything that he needs yet. And I love this with Abba. You get so many resources as you're aging up. You're able to get the upgrades you need. You don't have to chokehold yourself, but he needs to wait for the upgrades to take this fight now. Continuing to kite, Knights still falling.
I love the Lancer switch here. Archers will not be sustainable once Xlav gets to Castle, but Lancers will be so valuable. And now if you're Meow, you just focus on recovery. I don't think he needs to contribute anything to this fight. Just get back in this game ASAP. Kaio is going to be good enough to hold off this kind of a 2v1 setup for some time. And if Meow ever gets back to this in this game, it's going to be extremely difficult for Blid and Xlav. In fact, let's not forget, Meow, he's got a bunch of food in the bank. He's collecting gold. He might still think about Castle Age here. And if he goes with the Council Hall, He tried going up with the white tower, didn't work. If he goes with a council hole, he's going to recover very quickly in terms of eco.
Oh, speaking of his eco, another knight in his eco, but gets rather low. He has a few horsemen out and about. Not sure how valuable they will be, as this game is all Kios. They have a military lead, they have an economic lead, and it's basically, again, all Keo. It is nothing that is on Meow side. Keo does have to react to some of a little bit of a raid in his base from Xlav, but at the same time he's diving Byzantines as Byzantine is going up to castle and has an army mass in his base. Doesn't care about the knights. Look at them. The archers, they just kill him immediately. It's 2 volleys, and those volleys are coming out so fast.
Yeah, a lot of the archers fighting under the town center is not something that you like, and the Varangians are now on the way. If you're Keo, you need to be careful not to lose this big mass, but he's happy standing under this DC because the trades are so good.
The knights are falling faster than an archer under a TC. He cleans up the mass in his base as well. He runs over to the gold. There's nothing here to defend from Meow, please. Keo literally is 1v2ing this game.
What an insane performance from him. And there were some major slip-ups on their team's side in this game. Having denied of a landmark 3 times in a row and for the 3rd time losing the landmark entirely is catastrophic. You see 1 out of 100 games like that being won by the team that did this. Yet, Keo was untouched. His eco was never harassed. Like, you look at the minimap on the right side. He's on the hunt, he's on the berries, completely undefended. But that was not something that was ever exploited by Blid and Xlav. If they want a way back into this game, that has to be it. They gotta start using the mobility of these knights, start beating up that eco, and just buy some time until they actually get back to a decent eco. Xlav has just enough stone for a DC, but he doesn't have the wood now.
It's crazy to see where this game came from. The White Tower denied. The White Tower denied again, but loses full res for it. But all the time, Keo says, I'm an untouched 2 TC ABBA. Y'all are both sitting on y'all's 1 TCs. Y'all all in this and did not get enough damage. And still has a huge archer mass roaming behind both of the economies.
As you're saying, the Varangians are slowly coming in, and these archers are slowly detached into smaller groups, and that could be an opportunity for Blid and Xlav to clean these up. Knights are also moving into Meow's eco once again, but I don't think it's Meow's eco that they have to damage. They gotta hit the eco of Keo here, get to that backline, that farming eco that's currently being built up at the backside. If they can hit that, they have a way of getting back into this game.
It's crazy because I feel like Meow, every time we look, is losing like 5-10 vills and just getting crushed. And then I look over and Xlav's 3 vills ahead of him. Barely ahead. Blid, 6 vills ahead. Barely ahead. It feels like that Meow should be out of this game, but he's still almost on even footing compared to the other side.
And again, if you're Blid and Xlav, you want to prioritize the other player here. Meow has no army on the field. Sure, he's making a couple of knights, but you don't want to beat that player that's already down here. You want to hit Keo, and I think he might just narrowly miss all these farmers. That farmland on the right side is so valuable, and they aren't really finding that just yet.
Now starting to transition into some crossbows too. This is where you see a lot of the higher elo players go to. It's kind of that one size fits all unit. They just counter everything, but not necessarily counter everything. They have good base damage, so they work well against everything. But Blid starting to find some successful fights as the archers are split off. There are no crossbows there. A lot of armored units here.
Yeah.
And JD finally is level 3.
This is the thing, right? You're looking at 50 archers like we've seen 100 Chukanu in the previous game.
Gosh.
But they're in small groups, and they're slow. They are slow. Again, Keo's eco is still really good. Blid and Xlav need to turn this into an eco damage. Because right now they're killing army, but they're not killing eco. They need to find villagers out here, and they finally do. That's a lot of villagers down there.
They are splitting up masses very well here. That initial archer mass is still just trying to run through the ecos. Keo finally getting
no reaction.
Here. No reaction. 5 villagers left after that raid. 5 or 6 villagers go down. Crossbows late to react as well. But at the same time, Blid getting idled, Blid taking damage too.
Blid has no food income, which is catastrophic for the French. He's going into Castle Age and he's gonna have the Royal Institute, but he doesn't have the food to make more knights. They're still down by 20 plus economy right here. They gotta find that backline, the farming eco. If they can hit that, I think they have a chance at this game. Until that's still up, I think it's still a game for Keo and Meow because now Meow is getting some knights going.
Royal Institute almost gets spotted out. We almost saw the Royal Institute have to be canceled because Meow has 7, 8 knights now roaming the field. He's somehow online. He's English and he's like, cool, I'm just going to start massing knights. And, you know, Blid just now went up to Castle. He doesn't have Royal Bloodlines in. He doesn't have Castle Age Royal Knights yet. And Keo still has all of the momentum.
And now I feel like it's getting too late. Although if this army gets cleaned up, it's a different story. The knights are also coming over to help, and that's all you need. A bunch of archers, no crossbow support. You jump them with the Varangians, and if this is getting cleaned up, at least... oh my god, what? That might be it. I talked about this the whole series. You cannot let mistakes like that happen. All the villagers being lost to a raid. It was a thing that always happened for Keo and Meow, but for the first time in this series, Blid and Axelav lose a dozen villagers like that. I was just about to say that if they clean up the archers, at least the army count is even. Now it's too late. The eco has just spiraled out of control, and again down here as well. Oh boy.
There were so many of these
trying to play a slugfest, but they're just getting sniped away, I feel. They're fighting army against army, but while doing so, they're falling behind more and more in terms of eco.
Yeah, when that archer mass first ran through both economies and around the bases and throughout the mid-map, they basically ran a full circle. They did a really good job tracking them. Where they did bad is when they started to become 3, 4, 5 different groups. They stopped narrowly evading some of these raids and now just are getting slaughtered. Keo and Meow are about to just move on to the Byzantine economy as there's 10 knights here from English, there's Ghulams, there's crossbows, there's archers here from the Abbasid, and there is just not enough of a unit mass from the other side.
Yeah, they're trying their best here, Blid and Axelav. They know that this is do or die here in this tournament, and to credit them, they're taking some decent engagements over here, but the eco, it's always the eco that's problematic. That was the issue in the previous game. It's the issue now. They cannot sustain fights like this with half the eco compared to their opponents.
Yeah, and I'm just not sure where all the numbers are for Keo as he's got 50, 60 units out onto the field, 70 units out on the field. They're just all split up in different places, but that also means that Axelav doesn't have a lot of spots to gather eco from.
It's just too little too late now. The eco count is just way too different, and really in this series you gotta credit Keo. In a previous game, he was the one who held on. He was the one who built up that massive eco lead with the fishing boats. But especially this game, he needed to put his team on his back so much. Meow took a lot of early game damage. And to be fair, Meow is up to 10 knights only. It's not like he's got an overwhelming force. This is a Keo show all over. 2 TCs and basically just 1v2ing the opponents for a solid 10 minutes. Essentially winning this game and potentially the series for his team.
Yeah, I mean, not enough can be said for Keo in this game. It was a full carry. Meow was on the ground. He picked him up, put him on his back, and said, I will carry you to this finish line. And that is exactly what he has done. They're going to be moving on. You can see eco numbers. They're now doubling the eco, doubling the military. It is all but over for Meow Police in this series.
Yeah, they're trying to get back into this one, but it's too little too late. This mid-game period, Meow and Keo were much more effective when it comes to hitting the eco. In basically all of the games except for game number 2. That was the game that Blid and Axelav won. The other games, Keo and Meow did a really good job just always finding a way to hit the eco and eventually building up that villager lead through these non-stop raids.
And I mean, Keo's done such a good job kiting back with his ranged mass. We do see a good close in by JD there, but earlier on, it was all knights and archers and Limitanai against just archers from Keo, and Keo was somehow taking good trades against it, just taking his space, kiting back, falling back towards the town center, not overstepping too far, and now We can see what position they're in. It is just a timing show now, just waiting for the opponents to surrender. They're just sitting on the town center of the Byzantines. There's not enough units here to hold, not enough units to do anything.
Boy, oh boy, what a series this was. Especially this very last game, but the entire series was just so back and forth and really so much chaos all over these games. The moment you thought the team is winning, there is a swing back and then it's all over. Now Meow is going into Imperial because why not?
This really felt like a French versus French mirror, where it's just back and forth, headbutting each other, punching each other, raids here and there, and all of a sudden, a lot of times you look up, it's dead even, and then all of a sudden you look up and one team's doubling the eco, and that's just how quick this game can steamroll with these kind of builds.
And just look back at this game here as the Meow Police cause the GG. Just looking back at this game, the madness that we witnessed. 3 times did Meow fail with that landmark. In basically all of the games you see something like that, it's all over. And one of the magical things in team games, I feel, is that even if you really fail at everything, even if everything falls apart, you still have a teammate to potentially bail you out. And that's exactly what we've seen over here. Meow, he played well in this series, but this final game was just sad for him. But that's what good teams are characterized by. If one player makes a mistake, if one player has a bad game, can the other one take the team on his back and turn things around? Kyo did just that.
Yeah, and this villager graph tells the full story. You can see somehow Meow did not take as much damage as what you would expect. While we were sitting there watching that, it felt like he would have been at nothing. It felt like Blid and Xlav would have had a good lead on him. While there was a lead, it wasn't as bad as you expected. Meanwhile, Kyo was through the roof to the moon with his eco.
Wow, just wow. And I'm not gonna lie, looking ahead for tomorrow for these for the matchups, the decider games in this group, you have the Royal Couple of the North, that is Dimu and Kiljardi. They will be facing off against Kyo and Meow. It's not going to be an easy set for them, because one thing I think that we learned from Kyo and Meow in all of these games is that even if one of the players gets a lot of damage done to them, the other one is capable of turning things around. So it's actually difficult to deal with this team here, simply because it's one thing that you knock out one of the players. The other one is still able to carry the game until the player that took damage is just back. And you can see in these little shots how many times Meow's position looked catastrophic. It looked like game over almost. And then Kyo was there. Even in these moments, he didn't have a lot of archers. He had just enough to hold off these assaults and save Meow from complete destruction.
Yeah, and somehow throughout this, this looks awful for Meow. And then you look up and Blid has the same economic count as him. So this is where somehow, some way, it was a good enough hold. They did enough damage too with the king, and so I still think he shouldn't have canceled this landmark the first time. I think he should have just full sent it and been able to commit it. I want to say he was 3/4, 90% of the way up later on, but what a crazy back and forth. There's even moments now looking back, I'm like, I completely forgot about the king versus knight plays on the gold at the very beginning.
What a crazy series. But, you look at the other team here, Blid and Xlav, they really fought well. When you look at, I think this is how you started this whole conversation about these teams at the beginning of this broadcast. These guys, they found each other in a looking for team channel. Kyo and Meow have been playing together for ages. And when you look at this, at the end of the day, Kyo and Meow played in a lot of major tournaments before. They have a lot of competitive experience. Blid and Xlav really made them run for their money, and this was by no means a one-sided series. In fact, this was an absolute nail-biter.
Yeah, and that's why we are into these elimination games. These matchups are going to be close. It is where the seeding is going to be a little bit closer. It's not the 1 seed versus the 30 seed. We're looking, in these middle of the ground packs. That's where we finally see the White Tower go down. And next series, we're going to end up having the Volta Esports versus E-Gear is the next one coming up. They're behind getting the lobbies all set up, getting their map draft, getting their Civ draft. So we'll get to see some updates here in just a little bit.